Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the IESF World Esports Championship live from Iași, Romania! We have the best crowd here live from Iași at the amphitheater. It is going to be a remarkable day for our Mobile Legends Bang Bang Grand Finals. What a journey it has been for both of these teams, one easier than the other. The Philippines dominated their way through the upper bracket for a chance to lock their spot in yet another grand final. However, for Indonesia, a more difficult road indeed, as they had to grind their way through the lower bracket to make it here for yet another epic rematch between these two teams. It's going to be an unbelievable day of action, and of course, it can only be paired with an unbelievable casting duo, and it is my pleasure, my honor, to welcome to the stream for the very first time your English casters for this broadcast. It's Naisu and OSX. Gentlemen, how are you doing?
We are live from Iași, Romania, and once again, we welcome you to the 15th IESF World Esports Championships, and we enter the grand finals. This is Philippines versus Indonesia. An amazing matchup. Once again, I'm OSX. I'm with Naisu. Two teams, two countries. The defending champions, once again, will face a familiar foe.
Familiar foe indeed. Between these guys, there's a lot of history, right? We talked about this throughout the tournament. And yeah, I love the way that John put it down there. The difference of the journey here. Again, Philippines is undefeated up to this point, right? It was smooth sailing for them for the most part up to that grand final spot, and now for Indonesia, they went through the ringer yesterday. We'll take a look at the bracket, exactly how this journey went for these teams.
Looking at the lower bracket, big props to the countries who supported and also the fans who support all their countries who battled their way out from the group stages to the playoffs and the lower bracket round. Now it's the trail of Indonesia. Look at that. Coming from the lower bracket finals, faced Mongolia, faced even Egypt, and the last challenge was Saudi Arabia. Now they're back, crawl their way up top.
Yep.
And the countries who's been with us from day number one, who gave us a lot of good fights. A big shout out to the fans actually who supported them from day number one.
Yeah, it's always great to see this many, new countries and new faces compete here. Again, as we take a look at the upper bracket, this was the journey, like we said, for the Philippines, right? Every single series there in the playoffs, 2-0, they swept their opponents. And, for some matches, it was easier said than done, but still at the end of the day, one thing is apparent with this team for the Philippines is just how strong they are in every single department, right? Indonesia, on the other hand, again, they played, 8 games yesterday alone? And it was good that we ended a little earlier yesterday, right? Hopefully they were able to recalibrate, reset, of course, rehydrate, and get prepped up for this today. Again, they are last year's champions. So they have a title to defend here against a very hungry Philippines.
Woo! This is the upper bracket finals, Saudi Arabia and Indonesia. And this time around, we're looking at this. As I recall, my preparations going to Romania. Two MLBB giants in Asia. In their own right, in their own reign, they face. Last year ago, I remember back in Bali, now having this preparation, all the perseverance that went through, it's a big of a challenge, but this is an exciting match we're looking forward to today.
As we wait to actually jump into our first game, it's a best of 5, right? And the thing here is, depending on the pace being set, we've seen it happen before with the Philippines, and we've seen teams actually, other than Indonesia, keep up with the Philippines early game, right? Most of these teams have figured out that early game portion of these matches, but really I feel like even for Indonesia here, this time around, they've got to work on that mid-game transition. Can't wait to see if they're actually able to do that against a team that is undefeated.
Looks like the two teams are ready on our stage. Let's throw it over to John to welcome them for this match.
Ladies and gentlemen of Iași and everyone online, it's time for the grand final matchup of Indonesia and the Philippines. And first, it is my honor to welcome to the stage to bring the trophy, last year's champions live from Bali. It's none other than Chajono Prasetyando, the president of the Indonesian Esports Federation. Welcome. And what an honor indeed. The pressure for the Indonesian crew coming from the lower bracket to defend their title, to defend their throne. On the flip side, the Philippines, they're hungry. They're ready for this grand final matchup. And on that note, I think it's time to introduce our teams and welcome them to the main stage. First and foremost, the hungry team coming from the upper bracket, looking for revenge from Bali just 9 months ago. It's the Philippines! I'd love to get some thoughts from anyone on your team in your language. Feel free in your language. Any words for your fans that are watching at home in your language? You can ask in your language. Any words for your fans?
Sa mga nanonood sa mga kababayan namin sa Pinas dyan, papanalo namin to!
I love the energy from the Philippines. I'm excited to see them compete, representing their flag. Gentlemen, feel free to exit the stage here. Feel free to exit the stage. We're going to welcome the other team up as well. Go ahead. Cheers. Go ahead, guys. We're going to get the other team up as well. Congratulations to the Philippines. Excited to see what they can do in this matchup. And defending their global championship for the World Esports Championship from IESF in Bali just last year. Fan favorites, a team that has had to fight vicariously through the lower bracket. It's Indonesia! And you hear the crowd react live from Yash, the Indonesian contingent here to support. Then I'm going to ask you again. You had to fight through Mongolia, through Egypt, through Saudi Arabia, through every team to make it here. It's a rematch against the Philippines. Are we going to see the same outcome as last time?
No, we will win this time.
I love it. They lost to them in the upper bracket. They defeated them in Bali. What has your preparation been like for this competition and for this match? Have you been watching film, and what have you been doing to prepare?
We just having fun and enjoy the match.
I like that mentality. Another day in the office for Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise one more time for Indonesia. And y'all can exit stage left. Congratulations and good luck as we get ready for this competition. They say legends are not born, they are forged through hours and hours of relentless pursuit of their craft. Well, legends will be continued to be defined today as we have two legendary teams ready to compete in Mobile Legends Bang Bang. That's going to be it for me here on the stage. It is my honor to welcome back our casters, our remarkable casters in every single language. Bring the energy, bring the noise. It's time for our grand finals of Mobile Legends Bang Bang. Take it away.
Thank you so much, John. An amazing crowd that we're having it right now coming in our stadium. And this is the great time to be alive. Just imagine two MLBB giants from the Philippines and Indonesia. Two of the crowd favorites. Great community around the world who's watching us right now and tuning in for this matchup. Amazing time to be alive, guys. Even for me, the greatest moments are about to happen by just looking at even the trophy back on the stage. It's amazing. A sight to see on who's going to get this chance, on who's going to be, again, the champion for this in Yash 2023.
That was a huge trophy, right? I wasn't expecting it to be that tall, but that's what they're fighting for. Not only that, but of course the pride to say that they are the champions here. And at the same time, you know, when we saw that interview there with John and the rest of the teams, it was great to see. It looks like Indonesia has rested up. Again, that's, I feel like, what they needed after yesterday, playing 8 games, and now it's come down to this, right? The best of 5 ahead of them for this grand final. Let's take a look at the lineup here specifically for the Philippines. First, we've got in the goal lane, Recutiano, Saison in the jungle, Canon in the XP lane, Archangel in the mid, and Unigo in the roam. Solid lineup. Again, this is a team who, if you look at every single role, every single lane, they're impactful. They're valuable to the team, whether that's from the early to mid to the late game. They're all doing something, right? And so far, that's the reason why teams haven't been able to defeat them. They're undefeated for a reason. So Indonesia, based off what we saw in the upper bracket, those were quick games, man. It was a sweep, 2-0. hopefully they figured something out to handle this. If it's one lane at a time, tackle the plan. Just start with that early game, focus on it, lock it down. We saw Saudi Arabia do that yesterday. They were actually neck and neck with the Philippines, taking those early jungle objectives. Tarzan was doing great, but then it was where it fell apart was that mid-game. So if anyone can do it, it's Indonesia here. Hopefully they have a plan for this matchup.
Speaking of matchup, the jungle choices. The jungle here is what we've been seeing and looking at most of the matches from group stages up until this day. Those are the playmakers for these teams. That's the one who sets up the pace. That's the one who jumpstarts the engine on how to fuel their own composition. This time around in Saudi Arabia, from Philippines, even from Indonesia, they're similar picks. They're similar in, again, hero pool choices. A lot of ways, a lot of even off-meta picks showing up. But right now on our screen, we have Indonesia. For gold lane, we have Sakin, we have Super Ken in the jungle, we have Cerise on the EXP, Moreno on the mid lane, and Vin for the roam. We've seen how Vin adapted and changes for those roams who also rely on sustain, have more ways to get support for his team. But one that also stood out here is how Moreno taking more of the vision and even more of the recon that he gives for his team, even on the Novaria, man. We've seen him perform so good just by using this hero.
We know that Moreno has a lot to say, right, about this matchup here. He does in the game, too, because when he picks the Novaria, man, for the most part, as we've seen in their journey up to this grand final, he's been pulling the stops, right? But I still think this is a hero that's going to be very contested if it's not banned out, for the most part. Because
first phase, even
Novaria.
Second phase, Novaria. You have vision, you have poke. A lot of things can be discussed in game, but that alone, him alone, and even Vin, we see him how use the Franco. A lot said, a lot of similarities that actually be chosen, actually be stolen in just by end of first draft.
Here's what I'm going to say, based off what we saw from their matchup alone in the upper bracket, biggest thing I think Indonesia needs to do, if we're talking from lane to lane here, is secure Sakin in the gold lane, man. Because how many MVPs did Recutiano have so far? Just in the gold lane alone, I think Indonesia wants to be able to give Sakin a hero that either he's going to have a good time farming up early on, or just let him, spend the majority of the early mid-game farming up. If it's the Brody, I think that might be a priority here for the gold lane. But as we jump into this draft here for game one, you can see Philippines will be on the blue side. Just to clear things up, by the way, because they were upper bracket and they had the advantage, they chose the side that they wanted to be on, right?
Yeah, we've talked about it, yeah.
That's the advantage. So it's a best of 5 starting at even grounds. First band's coming out here. Let's see what the first pick, probably Fredrin off the top of my head.
Good choices here. They take out the Kaja, they're taking out the Eve, disabling more of the team fights, disabling more of the regen with this Faramis. On to Indonesia. They respect the hell out of this Franco, even for the Novaria. We were talking about it early on. And also the Paquito. All of this, most of the 6 band choices from these two countries actually is one of the power picks that we've witnessed even from their matches, even for the first that they met, even to the playoffs. Your suggestion of Fredrin actually works into the first phase because Philippines right now has the advantage of the first pick. Will they go for the utility? Will they go for the heal? Yes!
Wow.
Baksha, a favorite as well. We've seen different countries use this meta. And this is just amazing. You take out an Eve, but there's one thing also is considered on the table. You have the regen, you have the slow. But on the response, look at that. Kadita and Brody right away, taken by Indonesia.
Okay. This is kind of a surprise that Baksha was picked up first, but still, statistically, given how he's performed up in the playoffs especially, it makes sense, right? There's clearly an angle here for the Philippines, but the response is, I think this is great. This is what I was talking about before we even saw this draft pop up. Give the Brody over here to Sakin, right? We know the way that Brody works in the gold lane. You just need even an item, man. For the most part, 1 item, mostly 2, and then you can start really to pop off, especially just getting the marks off, torn apart memory, and then you pair it up with a Kadita here. That is a great start because now you have threat to control that early game, hopefully snowball in the mid or even your gold lane if you can, and let it scale from there.
Well, speaking of Sale, good catch though with the Valentina. Getting an advantage off of this ultimate from the Karata on the burst. Yes, you mentioned about this, Brody, how it's so being effective by not having the first, but having a great lane on the gold. But with this, we have seen the performance back then on the XP on the X-Borg, still making great waves from the back line of protection of each team that has its composition, having a great stronghold. Actually, this is a complete answer of the meta right now in Yash.
I'm wondering too here, as this is the first phase done. Now we go back to banning for the second phase here. Both teams still having 2 to lock down. Now, if we're just looking at the lineup alone, for Philippines, they're covering the bases early on. They've got the jungle. They've got this Valentina to allow them to steal some of these ultimates from Indonesia the way they see fit. It could even be, honestly, Rough Wave's last Insanity is already good, right? If you want to go ahead and take an ultimate, we'll see what is left. My surprise, too, is that, Novaria hasn't been picked up yet. We'll see what kind of bans that come through. The Angela is there, right? This is another pick, Angela Florin, that has popped up constantly for a lot of these teams wanting to go the sustainability route. And right now, it might be the focus, right? Focus on the roam options for Indonesia, focus on those for the Philippines.
Good ban on the Fanny though. With having a sustain, with having a great amount of reach, and even spellbound for this Terizla, you don't want that Fanny just trying to poke and burst you down early game. If you're up against a Baksha, you have more ways to even sustain that. But you don't want that slow. You don't want that delayed progression if you want to get tanky and if you want to have that HP AoE-based damage. So this is covering tracks right now on what is the great counter for their own signature or strong picks. But for the Angela, though, good point on the roamers as well. It's becoming more of an attention.
Yeah.
What is the roamers of Philippines and Indonesia for this one? They ban out the Clint as a favorite. The High Noon favorite right here in Yash. Even an early game. Still a great start. Yeah, it is. It's 12.
Feels like it.
Yeah, it feels like it. With now having banning out the Angela, Philippines had the idea like they might actually put the X-Board onto the XP, and even Indonesia can take the Lancelot for themselves. That's a good eye ban there for the Lancelot.
Solid choices here. And again, I have to correct myself, Novaria was banned out, so that option wasn't available. Now I'm wondering, how we're so used to seeing it picked up. How does that change the course of the game? Fredrin going to be locked in here. Now for Indonesia, great option, right? I would still say you can actually flex these as well. We have seen Export go in the jungle before, but most likely, XP lane to deal with this Terizla here. Fredrin locked in to deal with the Baksha. You have that utility jungler now. And your main focus is to emulate what we saw Saudi Arabia do yesterday, man. Like I said, Tarzan had an amazing experience in the jungle against the Philippines. And if that means taking and contesting those early objectives, like those first turtles that come up, that will give you the great start that you need. So right now, it looks like Indonesia is putting a lot of their cards in the early game burst potential, but also control, right? They need to contest those objectives early on.
Okay, good pickup though with this Claude and the Grok, securing the marksman for Ricadiano, a good knockup as well, and force out resource for this Grok. This Fredrin though, onto the statistics, back on our stats on how we started in Yash 2023, the blue side, or either the red side, is much more likely as having an increased win rate for this Fredrin. You've mentioned about utility, you mentioned about sustain, and having the burst for this, and first time around, Indonesia brings something out on the table, the Diggy, which is a great hero for their own composition, having the Fred, having the Brody, even for the Karita. You have immunity now for the CCs and ultimates that they can get from Philippines.
I would say that's clutch. That's a clutch pick because of the fact that if you just look at the first 3 picks for the Philippines, they're going for CC, right? They're going to go and try to stun, knock people up here, slow them down, but having this Diggy on Vin will alleviate some of that pressure, right, with the Time's Journey. So that is a great final pick here that typically we haven't seen too much of, right? We've seen him banned once, maybe, popped up in the group stage maybe once, but relatively we haven't seen him.
Well, now it's game time. Almost. In a few seconds, we're about to head to the Land of Dawn. This is the grand finals that we're about to witness. A best of 5 today. Once again, it's Philippines versus Indonesia, facing once again in the grand finals of the World Esports Championships. Who is going to take the first point out of this series?
Okay, we'll see how they start this game. A lot of the times, like we said, you know, if it's your first time watching MLBB, early game is, you know, for these first few minutes, you're going to see some poking happening here and there, but really the job, oh man, Chorizo already taking quite a bit of damage. He's going to get hit. Oh, I don't think he's going to survive that. First blood already drawn by the Philippines here.
Arcangel with the rotation and response onto the Terizlov Cannon. Meanwhile, up top here, Sakin and Vin. We have two roamers, we have two marksmen aiding this gold lane. Onto the visit of Arcangel down bottom, actually aided more to decrease the fragile armor of Chorizo right away. This is one thing that you don't want if you're up against a Terizla. You want to have the armor, you want to have that soak. But right now, onto the bottom lane, still the same thing happening.
Yeah, still pressure being put on here, right? As I was saying, both teams, another kill in the bottom lane against Chorizo. That is tough. He's now 0-2. I'm getting to the point where I'm trying to say, you know, Philippines might be looking for some pressure to get some resources out. I didn't think 2 kills this early on leading into that first turtle here. It looks like they want to have a response. Super Ken and Moreno both making their way here. 4 members of Indonesia now focusing on this top side. Archangel here to respond. They can't find anything. And Turtle just coming up here very soon. You can already see Saison getting in position.
Now with the delay onto Chorizo onto deaths here. No ultimate available ready for team fights. Saison has good advantage of clearing or getting more of their AoE here, or even the quadrant on how to get this first objective. Meanwhile, we have Super Ken as well, trying to get in for the action.
Okay, Super Ken, he wants to fight this with the retribution. It's going to come down to it. He does grab the turtle, now has to stay alive. Appraiser's Wrath comes through. There's the last insanity. Super Ken goes down. The flicker comes out too. Still going to be looking for Saison. A couple hits away. Moreno, can he grab it? He rolls away. Somehow surviving. Chorizo falls again. And Philippines still on the board. Indonesia only able to get the turtle.
Okay. They're willing to trade that. Philippines is willing to give up the first turtle up against Indonesia, but in that team fight, they disabled Chorizo right away. But one thing also that was concerned there was how will they sustain the damage? And looking by the items in progress right now, we're looking at 4 tough boots present and warrior boots for the marksman, for Gatiana for the Philippines. On the other hand, if we're looking at the marksman progress right now, Blade of Hephaestus is already present for Brody. You've mentioned it earlier, how is this item pickup is so valuable, even starting early game. I say this time around, Vin could actually have a great rotation once if he gets more vision for his team, especially for a Diggy. He's not letting go of his gold lane just yet because of the pressure that was given down bottom on the XP.
Well, again, you know, just given the fact that in the XP lane, that's, at this point, the lane is won, right, for Canon. Going against Chorizo, 0-3 on this X-Borg, who's relatively, you know, gonna have a hard time anyway, it's tough to deal with, you know, and as Canon gets more of these items, hold on to the top side, they already put in the pressure. Super Ken there now to help Vin. Really low here. Archangel might be looking to follow up, not going to be able to find it though. And you can feel the tension in the top lane, man, right? They're just going to focus there because, again, that XP lane, they just got to leave Chorizo here to his biddings at this point, right? Big thing though, even though he's 0-3, Last Insanity still plays a part in a lot of these skirmishes, a lot of these team fights to get them down low, hopefully on the health, and then have some follow-up. Sakin hasn't gone down yet, so he should be able to farm up pretty well on this Brody. Second turtle now up.
Okay, second turtle is up. Second objective. Can is looking to poke on Chorizo.
All right, they're going to find for it. Less than half health here. Canon zoning them out the best he can. Unigo holding on a little bit longer. Time to journey comes out as well. Turtle secured by Super Ken again. Gets the objective. Can they get the kill? Rough Waves will not find the connection they're looking for. Archangel using his own last insanity. Chorizo has to flicker out. Vin's gonna fall. Still looking for a second kill here. One hit away, and they put the pressure once again, but Indonesia grabs the turtle.
That is a good distance retreat onto the ultimate that Chorizo was going to give for the side of Philippines. That was a good initiation. That was a clapback. We were expecting more, that he could actually, that Archangel actually would get the ultimate of the Rough Waves. But in the last part that we saw a few seconds ago, he took the ultimate of Chorizo. The complete additional burnout and having on level 7 with being a Valentina is a massive clapback in terms of those skirmishes that you actually could lose up against the composition of Philippines right now.
Yeah, it was nice to see that, you know, and still another setup here. They finally get on the board. Unigo gonna fall, but there's the response. They're going back for him. Moreno will fall. Vin has to get out of there. He's got the times journey still. So Indonesia gets on the board here. The kill going over to Moreno, that should help them a little bit, but this early game is definitely a struggle. Meanwhile though, because of this objective taking from Indonesia, they've managed, despite these kills over on the Philippines, they've managed to keep the gold lead relatively okay, right? 1,000 or so gold ahead.
Yeah, Moreno was the first down to go after he was using the ultimate, and that was just the go time for Philippines to have a takedown for Indonesia. You mentioned how they're just keeping up with the objectives, they're keeping up with the economy. I said they have the eyes on, or even tabs for how they can get an advantage for Indonesia, even for the items. Philippines is building on the items right now to get a counter. Look at that, Finn flickered out.
Flynn's gonna flicker out. There's the time journey of their own. Super Ken can't get the Appraiser's Wrath off. He was looking for the kill. Not able to get it because he got stunned, knocked up there. Now the rest, Sakin waiting for the moment. He doesn't have the torn apart memory though just yet. Gonna get these marks off. Moreno going in, finding another kill. The flicker comes through, still on the follow-up. Could be in trouble. Only one down for the Philippines. Make it 2. Double kill for Sakin. Requitiano joining the fight along with Saison. Gonna push them back now. Turtle still gonna be worked on by Super Ken. He's not worried about it. That looks like it might be the third one. Waiting for this retribution. He's got it. 3 turtles for Indonesia. And now the junglers just battling it out, but they're back on the board and they swing things in their favor.
Moreno on the right target, taking down Unigo first and Cannon, disabling the penalty zone combo, disabling that knockup, the wall charge, the wall from the initiation once they started to get that turtle. Now looking by the items right here, we're looking at Burst, we look at the Elegant Gem also being built up slowly to get his, again, Clock of Destiny. But now with the priority of the Genius Wand, decreases the magic defense of Philippines right now. That's what they keep on bursting over and over again.
The Wild Charge Flicker combination comes in, but there's 4 members here. Unigo cannot escape that. He knew it. Will fall right in front of the turret. And once again, Indonesia finding a win where they needed to. They're going to force Requitiano back here. And as you were breaking down the items there, OSX, you saw Sakin is where he needs to be. As soon as that torn apart memory is up, you can expect them to put pressure. Saison now. Cannon's going to get knocked up here. The rough wave's already going to be used. There they go. Time's Journey has to come out defensively, trying to keep them alive. Flicker comes through. Sakin's still alive too. Gets the torn apart memory off, and they're still going. Time's Journey of their own for Archangel, forcing them back. It's a lot of poking back and forth. No one goes down, but all those resources expended.
Yeah, good frontline defense. Their 4 members from Indonesia just took a hold and just prevented Philippines from taking down Sakin. He forced out a flicker out of that Brody, but one thing that they're considering here is to lower down the proc of the Blade of Heptacy. So you all know who's watching us for the first time right here. 2-item pickup of a Brody right now. Having the passive of an ambush amplifies more of the damage if the Brody is not engaged or not being touched by any damage for a few seconds. But that is they're trying to prevent that. So with that, Super Ken is just also just clearing more of the waves here to get more items for Cerezo. Again, he falls down 3 deaths in the early game. He wants to get back up on his feet.
And not only that, but that he just picked up the Ice Queen Wand. That's crucial for him, right, on this export pick, because his job is just to slow people down and even get that last Insanity off. He has the Immortality, so he's got a little bit of extra defense here as well.
Yeah.
They're going to put themselves in a good position here for the Lord.
Yeah, speaking of positioning, we have Super Ken and Cerezo zoning out 2, 3.
Saison.
Moreno, though, he's going to
be
look
in
for
trouble.
the splash.
There's the last Insanity. They're forcing him back. 2 times journeys being used here. Lord is still going to be worked on. Super Ken just forcing the Philippines back alongside his teammates here. They've asserted their position. Philippines might have to give this one away. Requitiano might look for an entry himself. Unigo as well. Wild charge, but it's too late. Super Ken grabs the Lord. Vin will fall, but here's the focus. Unigo gonna get knocked up here. Looking for the kill. Requitiano goes in with a blazing duet.
Wow.
The wind of nature, though. Moreno goes down. They're still looking. Double kill for Archangel. Able to grab another one. Super Ken and Cerezo on the run. It could be dire, though. The penalty zone comes out. Super Ken left to his devices, Appraiser's Wrath, but falls in the jungle. They get the Lord, but at the cost of a couple lives.
Requitiano. PHI Requitiano with an entry. Mind you, when he wanted to go up front, up 4 against Indonesia, he didn't have the Wind of Nature yet. That was just damage building up. And when he knew that 4 ultimates were down and Indonesia, that was the time to use that blazing duet right on to 4. He has the Demon Hunter's Sword, he has the Golden Staff. and just by that, he has extra damage to peel, and the fall of Canon and even Arkel was so beautiful to see, and that is just complete reinforcement, a quick response from Philippines.
Look at that. Arcangel getting that times journey for himself. That's proving to be really valuable for a lot of these team fights, depending on what ultimate he takes. But Indonesia playing around that power spike they had by getting that Lord. It was only the first one of the game. It made quick work, right? Philippines made quick work of it. But still, Indonesia's doing it in terms of objectives. They've got the 3 turtles. They got the first Lord. Philippines is the one that has to figure out how to get these neutral objectives against Indonesia, because this is where teams usually lack against the Philippines, right? This portion of the game is where they really slip up and take things in control, but it's Indonesia that's doing it. And now they focus on these tier 2s, a huge flicker! Penalty zone from Canon with the times journey able to help them out. Can they follow up through it? Torn apart memory already going to be used. Rough waves as well, no one falling. Unigo goes in with wild charge, finds Moreno. He will fall. It's a pickup, but the response from Super Cannon Cerezo looking for their own response. Canon falls to the Appraiser's Wrath. Blazing Duet comes down 2 down. Make it possibly 3. He holds on with the immortality now going to be popped. Can they get the kill here? He's still got the armor. Recritiano in trouble too, and he falls to Vin. It's a bloodbath here in the mid lane, 3 for 3.
That was a complete tug of war. The disengage, the initiation from Cannon with the flicker and penalty zone initiated the go time of Philippines. One thing that they missed there is they were looking for a way to take down Moreno. That was a good wall charge by Unigo, but one thing they also were considering is how do you even catch Shaq? He was all over the distance. He was minding the gap, losing his ultimate at the right time. But one thing they had a way of to have to shut down 3 members of Indonesia. That was a complete disengage and again a back and forth.
Yeah, it was a bloodbath, man.
Completely disengaging. But now we're boiling down on the second objective of this game.
Can I just say too, great job for Cerezo here. Again, he had a rough early game, 0-3. He's made it back, right? And a lot of times it's just doing what he's doing. Getting that Ice Queen Wand proc, slowing people down, using Last Insanity. They're gonna force Philippines back again for the most part of this Lord take. They're trying to get this one locked down. It's half health. Arcangel with the times journey of his own.
Arcangel just completely got the ultimate of the Diggy. Cerezo's ultimate is up, but he has no immortality.
Good reset.
Okay, there's a reset now on this Lord. I say in team fights advantage, Philippines has a window now to capitalize on, which they have for CC immunity and burst.
Keep an eye on the positioning, Recritiano as well. They're trying to spot him out. He knows what his job is. It's to get a blazing duet off on multiple members here of Indonesia, putting the pressure on. But it's not going to happen yet. Saesun trying to roll around here. They're not sure if they want to commit to the Lord just yet. It is about a third of the health here. Then Vin's in trouble. There's the blazing duet we were just talking about. Vin will fall. What's the response from them? Last Insanity popped as well. Socket in trouble. He goes down. It's a double kill. Both gold laners down here. The response is from Indonesia to keep going. Cannon in trouble. Has the immortality. Will be popped here. And they follow it up with a kill. Unigo can't do anything but watch as he falls. And now it's 2 versus 3. Both junglers still up here. It is crucial. They can still fight with the retribution. Unigo goes in with a wild charge, trying to buy some time, trying to stall out Indonesia from taking this. Rough wave's going to be utilized here. Saesun still being held back. Superkin now starting it up. They're waiting for the team to come up here. Last Insanity once again. Saesun will fall, and that means a Lord going in the hands here of Indonesia, unless they can do something about it, but it doesn't look like it. They grab that one.
I just got to command Indonesia for that border control. You have Cerezo, you have Vin, and you even have Moreno just looking up avenues on how will Philippines gain an entry on that Lord. Again, that objective, that major objective, going back on this replay, it was a back and forth.
Yeah.
The positioning of Recritiano was so crucial by just being in the death bush. He managed to get Vin, he managed to get Socket. That was a double for the Federid, gaining more advantage for takedowns.
Oh, this is troublesome. They're going to lose the base mid-turret here. Still going to be worked on. Penalty zone is utilized. They're waiting for the damage. Blazing Duet comes through. Is it enough to make them fall here in the jungle? Immortalities, multiple go off here, but Indonesia still fully
Chorizo.
forced here. Chorizo in trouble, couple hits away.
Woo!
They force Recutiano back and Unigo falls. Arcangel comes in for a double. Still looking for another,
Moreno!
but Moreno somehow gets away with a sliver of health.
Wow. The tug of war continues. 3-man down as well for these two countries. Recutiano really knows how to start a party. That blazing duet going back on this replay once again in this short corner. Vin was trying to get a hold of his own ultimate. They were forced to retreat back in the side corner. This was Unigo can completely shine. He used the wall charge. He procced and forced out something on Super Ken, but most of the members of Indonesia having a slow slither of health as the damage of Recutiano is piercing through in their defenses. But from that moment on, Philippines respected the hell out of the damage, even the defense of their own opponent against Indonesia. Look at the board, 16-16.
At the 16.5-minute mark, both these teams giving us a show in Game 1 in this best-of-5 grand final. You can see just how familiar they are with each other here.
Yeah, speaking of familiarity, looking at all the items almost locked in, we have two members of Philippines right now who has more sustain. You have Antique Raz, you have Radiant Armor, sustaining more of the magic damage that Moreno hasn't always for against Chorizo. He has the Ice Skin one for the slow though, but mostly as you can see on our screens, we're looking at three members who actually have more advantage in soaking up team fights. So you have, that's 3 Antique Raz on our screens. From Vaksha, from Brag, even from Cannon. So more of this could actually initiate the fights, especially that we've seen from early game. You have that Flicker ult combo, you have Wave Sustain, you have Spell Vamp having a present for Cannon. So what they need right now is to see. They need to look at on how Indonesia is rotating because there's only one turret left for Philippines to defend. There's two problems. How do they get to the backline of Indonesia? How do they get to defend this base? But that is the answer. They have a claw. They have more ways to wave clear and also split. Mind you, that is still a threat in the late game.
With that, next lore now up here. Indonesia in position. Philippines really has to approach this, as you were saying, OSX. You know, they have the tools they need, and a lot of that is negated just by a time's journey. So you almost have to just overlap things perfectly to get this team fight in your favor, or it comes down to the positioning and the conceal play.
You know, speaking of conceal, in position, 3 members of the Philippines right now eyeing on Chorizo.
Okay, Recutiano also making his way here. Cannon gonna go in, he jumps in with the penalty zone. Here comes Unigo looking for the wild charge. He has to wait, time's journeys, both teams gonna be used. Recutiano finds the mark on the blazing duet, forcing them back. Chorizo still alive, but in the mid lane, they battle it out. Sakin with a torn apart memory will not find a kill. Philippines stays healthy. Indonesia down 1 member. They can still contest the Lord here. If the Philippines grabs this Lord, they will surely march into the base of Indonesia. This is crucial for them.
Yes, speaking of crucial, that backline entry from Cannon and Unigo is so effective for Recutiano's enters with Blazing Duet. But one thing that they're seeing here, we're seeing on our screens, Vin on this Diggy is giving so much vision for Indonesia right now, even he falls down first.
Super Ken getting in position. He knows what he's got to do here. They got to zone him out. Cannon again jumps in with a flicker. Penalty zone. Lord secured for the Philippines. They're turning it around here. Unigo goes in with wild charge, focusing on Chorizo, but in the backside, Recutiano using that blazing duet, firing off before he has to back out as well. They have the Lord. They can't fall here. Lord already up down the bottom side. Saesun will fall, and Indonesia responds the 1-for-1. But Lord secured for Philippines.
Clearly getting that win. 2 jungles fall down. Super Ken and Saesun. From that moment that Cannon initiated a flicker penalty zone, it was just the right corner for Unigo to utilize with the walls and the passive of Grok. Looking at this replay, the amazing entry of that Terizla onto 2 members forced Indonesia to react. Forced Chorizo to use that last insanity, but with the knockup of Unigo right onto the wall on that corner, gave so much rate for the damage to pierce through, making Recutiano so effective with the damage of the Blazing Duet. This is the prowess of winning condition of a Claude being present in Philippines.
Okay, here it is. They should be able to clear this. They're quite stacked on the items. They're zoning once again. Penalty zone comes through. They hold on to the turret, so despite that, Indonesia holds on with a great high ground defense. Given the situation, They're back at it. It's still over a minute and a half for that next Lord to come up. It's up to these two teams to find wins. Now for Philippines, what did they get out of that Lord? They got a few turrets. They got a little space to work with now.
Yeah,
along
gaining
the map.
more on the presence of having a push, having a great clear against Indonesia. Yes, slowly they're getting something out of it. This is the late game. This is the window of their own lineup. Late game composition, Claude, a walking winning condition, just in case they would need more extra damage. There's Arcangel, there's also Cannon for the Spell Vap. What we're trying to say here is they have more winning condition, as you said.
Yeah.
More tools, tools almost complete. They can actually interchange more of the items now on how to counter sustain, how to counter movement speed, because in Vision, and even for team fights, Indonesia needs more ways of discovering where will the penalty zone will land. Where will Unigo come from? Look at this, the control. Look at the control over the map right now what Philippines is doing.
Look at that poke damage, right? That's just from Rectiano. A couple shots. Super Ken's got to respect it. He does have the immortality. But, you know, good point here, OSX, because at the same time, like we saw from that previous highlight, Kenon had a great flicker penalty zone combination on this Trizla, but unfortunately, you know, timing-wise, Rectiano was a little bit too far. The rest of the team was a little bit too far. If it happened a little bit differently, that timing, that down to a couple seconds, could really change the course of a lot of those fights.
Yeah, speaking of changing course, in team fights, if you miss the chance for a setup for Indonesia's lineup, they have Moreno, you have the Kadet that could actually evade by using that rough waves. This is one thing that you have if you have this kind of lineup. Either you use it against your enemy team or they force it against you. But looking at it right now, we have Indonesia eyes on the Lord. But Saiso's not letting go on Vision as well.
Yeah, look at the placing. You have to keep an eye on the map here. Positioning crucial. Both junglers are just going to stay around this Lord, buying time. Anything that really stands out about these two teams, Philippines and Indonesia, is the fact that they've mastered what we call this Lord dance. Both teams just trying to basically gauge each other. Who's going to commit? There's the conceal from Unigo. The rest of Indonesia also making their way. They had the information they needed. And they know that that conceal is down. The surprise factor is not there anymore. Still going to be working on it. That's the reset. And this is the strength of having a Gronk. He's going to use that Guardian's Barrier to go ahead and reset the Lord here. Now both teams know 5 versus 5 around the Lord, the most crucial one of the game. This is that fourth one. It gets much tougher to deal with the more Lords they go through. So now, once again, they find themselves at a stalemate.
They know each other so well that if one jungle is just showing up in this objective, some point of the game actually might happen or even might have a push. But looking at how they're so experienced in this kind of challenges, they know what to feel and what to decide.
Saken already used that Torn Apart memory. They might try to buy a little bit more time here for that to be up. Both junglers still at it, dancing in front of this Lord pretty much, dealing with it. They do have immortalities as well, so they have to be careful how they decide to do this. Canon's gonna jump in, that's what we're talking about. Rectiano following up with a blazing duet, and in a split second, they'll collapse on Indonesia. Saken in trouble, couple shots away. It's a disaster for them around this Lord. Sorizo flickers out defensively. Seiso's gonna chase him down, rolls in, looking for that immortality, will not be able to find it, and they have to go back to this Lord, but Indonesia does not want them to just take it freely, but it looks like they call it back. Give it to them, and we just defend.
Cannon with the Trizla, the element of surprise, forced out ultimates out of Indonesia. The two most crucial pickoffs just happened, Saken and Vin.
Oh, I think they're gonna press the situation. Wild charge, into the turret they go. Moreno can't find the connection he's looking for. Holding on here they do. Rectiano gonna force them back with his own blazing duet. BMI's back to safety. And they press them back. Ultimates are online except for Moreno here. Indonesia, can they defend this? They should have a full force to deal with this Lord. Once again, it will most likely charge up into that turret here. So slowly but surely, Philippines gaining ground for this game number 1. They're gonna hold it here, and Indonesia hangs on.
25 minutes. We're in the ultra late game.
It's a
We're
long game.
timers are much longer. One crucial pickoff, either from these two countries, once they spot on someone out isolated on the map, that is the advantage of having a disable and the power of their late game composition. Now we're looking at the defense of Indonesia right now onto the base. We'll see some items be switched up here. We're looking at the power. We're looking at the defense of Moreno. He now has the Winter Truncheon, able to force, able to have an invulnerability.
This is tough.
Even burst down from Philippines.
The tough part here is the fact that you have everybody item locked. They're going to be switching items, like you mentioned, right? And it comes down to these micro decisions. In that sense, immortalities, right? Once they're expended, you're going to expect them to pick up these Winter Truncheons or these Wind of Natures, flip things out, even those Rose Gold Meteors, right? And at that time, especially dealing with Moreno, you just have to dodge that initial burst for the most part. But right now, what it's looking like, both teams having some of their bases exposed, Indonesia's turrets a couple hits away. This is where it gets a little dicey, because what we've seen before too is not so much focused just on the Lord at this point, right? This is going to be the 5th Lord. It's almost game ending for most matches, right? We're nearing that time. But not only that, but when teams focus so much, they're hyper focused on dealing with that Lord, the split push comes through. So they have to keep an eye on that here for Indonesia.
Things could happen all over the place, all over the map. Good point there about the split push. We're looking at Salkin, we're looking at Ricotiano. Damages right now is actually showing up on the roof, but one thing to also saw right there when he had to hover on the items, we have 2 members of Philippines has the Queen's Wings, probably countering out the damage reduction of Indonesia's damage right now that could be so high because with the Brody and even for Cerezo, you have more ways to even compensate for that, just in case for a team might just happen. As you mentioned about the map being all things can be considered.
Yeah.
Split push, actually diversion. It's present for these 2 MLBB giants that actually they keep on experiencing even in their own leagues. So it's so nice to see that there's a lot of tension, a lot of surprises can happen.
Wow.
But look at that. There's some folks, so much immortality right now on our screens.
Yeah, they're already going to force Saison, right? So off the Lord here. Got to keep an eye out again on the placements. Specifically, what's going on at the bottom side of the map. Moreno also trying to find some, this might work.
Whoa.
It does. It at least gets the immortality. Still has to follow up. Trees are going to go in with the last Satani Archangel. In trouble, but he has the Winter Truncheon. Cannon can't help him. He falls, but look at the bottom side. This is what we were talking about, the split push they might be going for. They still have to deal with here. The penalty zone will not be able to find the mark. Revenge Strike comes through. Cannon, can he salvage this fight at the top side? Meanwhile, on the base, Vin fell. Requitiano is still there, but good thing Sakin went back. So the base is handled. Saison and Cannon trying to get out of here. They're going to lose their jungle. That's big for Indonesia here. They managed the split push. They won that fight around the Lord. And now they can decide, do we go for it? 3 down for the Philippines.
3 crucial takedowns with just the presence of Moreno, Super Cannon, Vin being on the base and being on the side of the Lord. They were able to sustain that burst. They were able to sustain that CC coming in from Cannon, putting the right amount of people with the burst here. Cannon's trying to hold off as well.
Cannon trying to buy time. He needs a lot of it. It's him versus the world right now. Unigo up here. He's going to go ahead, try to block some of these minions. Immortality will be popped. Wild charge. He's holding on. He doesn't have it just yet. He cleared the minions though. For now, is it enough time? Archangel now up. Can they defend this by themselves? The base is going to be worked on by Sakin, and it looks like Indonesia will draw first blood in a long game here in a best of 5 against the Philippines.
Indonesia giving their Philippines their first defeat in the playoffs. They do it with fashion in the grand finals. That game is so tight that you don't even know what could happen next, but that capitalization on 3 members just by the Lord, they know what could happen with the Claude. They know what could happen. They know what's the capability of Ricotiano. Having his Claude onto this game, have the preparations to this matchup shows how they have eyes on the strong power of Philippines right now.
Man, that was an intense match and a long one. Longer than a lot of these matches we've seen. And you see what the answer there was, OSX. They held everything together against the Philippines from especially the mid-game transition. Let's take a look at the MVB here. Honestly, it could be anyone from Indonesia, right? There it is, Sakin on this Brody. I don't know how many times alone this hero, in the hands of many of these great players, has gotten MVP, but here it is, 8-3 and 6. And if you recall, early game, he had relatively a good lane. He got 2 early kills, and there you go, So deserving MVP, played really well in some of those high, intense situations and positioning.
Yeah, by the kill participation of 67%, he has to switch up onto the last moments of the game where he needed the Athena shield and even the Wind of Nature. But one thing that was considered was the scaling damage of a Brody. Complementing the tankier side of 3 members of Indonesia is so much important for them to hold those kinds of objectives. The lore dance, these 2 teams has mastered that for so long, and what they need to answer was either divert some attention out of the Philippines or make use of those mistakes that Philippines has made. And that was just completely gaining, or just was completely Indonesia having the confidence, having the preparation. It was totally translating on that into that game.
That game 1 was intense. I mean, we started with our coats on.
Yeah.
And we felt the heat here and in the game. That
you can see it from here.
My goodness.
It's so heated up right now.
What a game 1. Again, the best of 5. There's not obviously they are the first team in this tournament to take a game here like this from the Philippines. So this is a great start for them. And I think, really in a game like this, when it gets to like what you like to call OSX, the ultra late game, it really does come down to those, the macro plays, the minor decisions. And this is, again, a lot of people are going to notice if you watch a lot of MLBB, what the Philippines was trying to do there. They were trying to go for that split push, into the base, and Indonesia handled it perfectly. So we'll see if they can adjust. We are going to be taking a short break, though, so sit tight. We'll be back after this. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here live from IESF, Romania. We are knee deep into the final series for MLBB playoffs here, the grand final between Indonesia and the Philippines. It's a hot day here, it's a hot match. Indonesia's off to a hot start. 1-0 in this best of 5, defending champions for Indonesia. They have a lot to live up to, and also they are the first team now to give the Philippines a taste of defeat here in their journey.
Mind you, that Diggy pick, the last Diggy pick,
Yeah.
it was so good on the last phase that you counter most of the CCs that Philippines has started in the first draft. And looking by how they're maintaining that kind of composition, there's a lot of things present. The toolkit of Indonesia back in game number 1 is so strong early game, that relies on completely in vision. No matter how many times Vin got taken down with that Diggy, one thing that he aids for his team is just completely vision, and having an amount of that kind of reconnaissance around the map gives so much value of information to your marksmen, to your junglers, and and being all over the place. That's one thing to just go and back up on your feet with having the items that you lost in the early game. We saw Chorizo take down 3 times.
Yeah, he had a rough game, early
by that
game.
kind of information that Vin's giving to his team, it's completely a great answer for those that think that they've lost.
Rough early game for Chorizo, and that's why I'm saying, he did a great job at, coming back through that deficit that he had. It was a lot of attention on his lane, and, at the end of the day, all he really had to do with this X-Borg is slow people down for the most part, and last insanity, right? And that's kind of what happened there, not to mention the Diggy. The Diggy is relatively well known for, if you guys are familiar with the Philippines and this team specifically, they don't like to play against the Diggy a lot of times, right? And we actually haven't seen it pop up too much. But what you notice too is it then got to a point where it was a challenge, right? When you have Valentina, you're trying to decide what ultimate am I going to take? What ultimate am I going to take? And it gets to a point as the game progresses where it gets even harder to get the ultimate that you want, because again, when you have Valentina, you have to get in a relatively, safe distance or close to the enemy to the ultimate you want to take.
Yeah.
And if you looked at Indonesia, they just did an amazing job at kind of taking that opportunity away or making it harder for them to get the ultimate they want. That's why we saw a mix, right? Sometimes it was the last insanity that was taken. Sometimes it was the time's journey. Sometimes it was even a rough waves or something, right? So that was difficult. Not to mention, on the macro level, great job for Indonesia on dealing with the split push. We've seen so many games end because of a split push, right?
Yeah,
and the Philippines is a team that's really well known for that.
They were aware of that. Even on the second Lord of the game, we were looking at a mirror kind of like feeling. The professional game sense of these players, they know that there was no marksman around that Lord, and they were just seeing Saison, and on the other hand, they're just seeing the jungle of Indonesia. 2 of the marksmen, even the roam, was also up top. They were also wary of the threat of having a split push by having this kinds of marksmen present in their composition, and they know what could actually happen. By this, a lot of strategies could actually be tested.
Yeah.
What could be the answer for these kinds of diversions, these kinds of drive all around from burst, from knockup? And good point that you mentioned about the ultimates being sold and having a Valentina. Yes, it's an advantage, but most of that part, you're pressured to even either pick what is the most valuable for your team.
Yeah, that's the hard part. It's like a mini game in itself.
I know. It's like screwing up with your mind. Like, what ultimate am I gonna put? Because in the late game, even the Diggy, man, I will just want to point again. Even the Diggy falls down. It's just complete having a great vision. For me, it's kind of like a buff. Like, okay, I'm down. I'm giving a vision as well. Yeah. And for all we know, a lot of 3 players from Indonesia there were so tanky they could sustain even the spell vamp. And even the damage reduction from the Queen Swings was totally countered.
Yeah, there was a lot of, and if you look at the Philippines in that match, there was a lot of great moments, especially, Canon trying to use that Trizla, trying to find these combinations we usually expect, which is like a flicker into the penalty zone. And, it was unfortunate for the Philippines because there was times when he would get 2-3 members. But Recutiano was either not there or he just didn't have enough time or he was zoned out, one of the two. And I feel like, regardless, that's what makes this X-Borg so strong, is because when you think about it, it's a natural instinct. You see a last insanity come towards your team, you disperse, right? And it makes it much harder because then you have to come through with a different angle. Again, if we look at that draft That priority pick also on the blue side for the Philippines was the Baksha there, right? So now that they're going to be switching sides, how does that change this dynamic of Game 2's draft?
That was a good point, Mr. Rezabek, because in that kind of situation in team fights, you mentioned about the X-Borg, there's something in your head. At some point, last insanity may be used against you. I call it like a tug of war in team fights because there was a lot of disengage. They were minding the gaps so well to the point that they don't want to be taken down. And the most two crucial pickups that happened like 22 minutes into the game was so effective that you have a way of like trimming down the damage potential of these two compositions. And that's one thing that is just so important, having the right targets and having a right amount of defense. But to the point that it's the ultra late game. It could be anybody's game, but the problem is they have more burst, they have more sustain to counter damage potential of the winning condition of Philippines.
Okay, so we've pretty much broken down how that game one kind of unfolded, right? And now you kind of have to wonder as they get prepped up for this draft for Game 2, which we should be in shortly, approach-wise, right? Philippines, let's talk about them because they're down 1 point in this series. Philippines necessarily, again, it's foundation for them, just like it is for Indonesia. They're going to want to secure that early game, the jungle rotations really well. The difference here, too, is how the Philippines, the previous game, really put a focus on the XP. They shut it down. If they do something similar to that, they have to be able to, of course, transition, respond really well. The hard part for the Philippines the previous game, again, was the turtles. For the most part, it was Indonesia that really played well around the turtle takes early on. They were forcing the Philippines out of the area so that they had to respond on, or basically be reactive to Indonesia, right? So they kind of took a page out of, it's their book, but also what we saw Tarzan do from Saudi Arabia so well. Again, for the most part, Tarzan was getting, 3 for 3 on the turtles early on against the Philippines.
That's a good point. Philippines focus on the EXP. They have Terizla. In the first day of the playoffs, he was ranking 1 on our statistics. And mind you, when the days just went through, he went from like rank 23, 25. And most of the things that's prioritized here on the EXP lane, it's the Uranus, a Faramis, or even a Lapu-Lapu. So this time around in game number 2, we could either see a switch up, we could either see a different one from the book. As you've mentioned, they could either use something different in this kind of threat.
Okay, so here we go, right? Game 2 draft. Indonesia now on the blue side. They're going to get the priority pick. Philippines on the red. The bans here, too, it's a little bit different, right, from what we've seen at least here and there. The Brody's actually going to be banned out.
First thing on his mind.
Yeah, because I don't know, he's got to be pretty high up there in terms of gold laner statistics for this tournament, for IESF, WEC. We've seen so many great performances on Brody. Also, even though they had just used it, they decide to ban out this Kadita as well. Let's see what the last,
also for Archangel's hero.
Let's see what the last ban for the Philippines is.
Okay, they ban out the Eve, they ban out the Paquito. So mostly the Joy was not a good option for most of the teams.
Yeah, most teams. But
I believe either just let it go.
It could work for
and
either of
pretend
these teams.
that here doesn't exist.
I mean, they could make it work. Again, historically.
Just don't mind the Joy.
Historically, Joy, didn't work out very well. Especially, it was Indonesia that actually drafted it. But a couple times, I think it was, for Super Ken in the jungle. But instead, they just opt for Novaria, who is open. And, even before we started the series here, OSX, the Novaria is a signature pick, I would say. That almost all teams, but Indonesia specifically and the Philippines, they love this pick. So if it's left open, you're safe to take it because not only do you have some flexibility with it, you don't necessarily have to play it in the mid lane. We have seen teams play it as a roam, which could work. Now, are we expecting, Vin to play this? Not so much, right? But still, it's a possibility, and it's something that the Philippines has to consider here.
You know what's a possibility? An assassin first pick.
For Philippines?
They could do it, but they're still sticking with Terizla. But okay, still the same thing. First two that we've seen for game number 1, Claude and the Terizla. I always have a thing on my head because in the game number 1 they banned out more the assassin picks, and mostly they don't want that kind of a burst damage that they can receive early game. There was a spec coming in from Indonesia that they wanted to see the draft from game number 1, but this is a good one for Philippines. They've taken the Terizla with them, taken the Claude once again, and pairing it up. This actually could have an advantage if they use or have the Valentina on their side. Just having a great of a counter of using an ultimate out of Indonesia.
We'll see if they, if they want to go that route, if they want to lock that in. It's almost something that we typically see. Again, like mid lane for the most part, that's where you see the most consistency in terms of hero picks, right? And now we'll have to kind of ponder exactly what they want to do facing off in the mid lane. But meanwhile, Indonesia, let's talk about the Baksha, the Beatrix. Baksha, solid choice. Again, you're looking for that mobility. You have this built-in passive with you as well to not only be quite tanky, but also to deal with some of the regeneration coming out, the sustainability from the Philippines. And Beatrix, just one of those marksmen that fits the bill for anything, right? She literally has a gun for every situation, and that's the way that her kit works. You can just pick a gun for, if you want to do solid single target damage, AoE damage, and really covering fire for your team.
You know what's a good AoE?
What is?
Farsa could show up here.
For Philippines.
Yeah. If you're up against a Beatrix, that's a great counter on how to just reach the back line and force something out of Indonesia. Will they consider the Valentina or even the Farsa though? Because they have the XP, they have the marksman. There you go.
You're doing great.
Yeah, man. So that's a great counter there, as we see. So that's a good. You have the AoE.
Isn't it only the Philippines that has picked up the Farsa? I
Yeah,
think so,
only
like,
for
through the
Arcangel.
playoffs, right?
Yeah.
So, good choice, good call. And the fact that, they let this Valentina through. What I'm wondering too is, what if, right? What if Indonesia, depending on how these last couple bans come out, what if they're like, all right, well, they got the Farsa, now we want actually the Valentina. Let's go ahead and park Novaria in Vin's hands, take up the Valentina. So we also have a feathered airstrike. Now it's even worse, right? Because you're dealing with artillery, you're dealing with poke. That could happen here. So let's see exactly how these last couple bans come through. That was the Lancelot taken out from Indonesia. Great choice because the jungle for Philippines is not up yet. And if you remember, back on day 2, I think it was, Philippines played this Lancelot with the Impure Rage emblem, and that was it was a great way to play it, right? It's a different factor than the killing spree which we usually see. So solid choice there. Last ban from the Philippines is going to be that Exborg. They're tired of dealing with what they had to the previous game, right?
Just need to respect them.
They have to respect it. They take it out.
Okay, we have the XP lane ban, also the Angela. They were kind of sensing it. Indonesia sensing it, like the ban of the Angela, they might go for a sustain. But one thing that we can actually see, the assassin. I was kind of feeling it. I was kind of feeling that either Philippines would prioritize on that, but it was mostly onto the XP as you've mentioned early on. So no assassins. What's good here for Philippines as well, they can actually take the Fredrin again. Good pair with the Terizla, good pair, and also a counter for the Beatrix. I say it's still a good pick. Fredrin for Philippines. You have the taunt, you have the tankiness.
It's kind of like it's usually what teams just go when they're against Baksha,
Yeah, but not regularly on the second phase.
Yeah.
On the picking.
Well, like we've seen it maybe a couple times, but if you want to be a little risky, again, you're down just 1-0 in the series, you still have plenty of time. Do you want to go with that risk reward? You could pick up a assassin in the jungle if you really want to, if you really want to compete that way. But they don't do it. They pick up the Fredrin. They opt for that utility, that safety. Again, you're up against a Baksha. The downside of assassins into a Baksha especially is obviously it's going to be really difficult for you to have some of those prolonged Lord fights or even turtle fights early on, right? Because you'll easily get whittled down. So a solid choice here. Let's see what the answer is from Indonesia. Like we said, we still have to see exactly where this Novaria is fitting in. We already have the jungle, we already have the gold lane. We need the XP and the roam or mid option for Indonesia. If they end up picking up the Valentina, that will be an interesting composition that we've seen actually work really well before. Plus
Glue is good though.
Glue for the XP lane.
Glue for the XP for Indonesia is still good, but they go for the Minotaur. Okay, knock up, you have a disable for the Claude. Trying to get the precision, but okay, different way. We have EXP
this is that lineup I was telling you about, OSX. The tanky boys. The beefy boys, like this is it, right? Because
beefy boys and a cow.
Well, literally, yes. There is a...
We're in Yash.
Yes, and here's the thing. We only saw Minotaur once, I think it was, which was yesterday in the hands of Maro, right? And we did not get to see how useful a Minotaur could be because, yeah, he had some great, setups, flicker ins with the Minoan Fury, but at that point when they were utilizing it, there was no follow-up, right? But this time it's in the hands here of, once again, some of the best players in the world, if not the best. So now, how does this get rounded out from the Philippines?
Atlas.
Yeah, they might want to go with something also tankier here to help them round this out. Wow, not what I was expecting. They go with a Roam Valier.
Those two mages.
Interesting.
Okay, yeah, disable. You have a complete debuff. You have a complete pushback on this cow, on this Minotaur, and also for the Grok. Even for the boxers, there's a lot of ways to secure the board, because that was the problem in game number 1.
Yeah.
How do you protect that? How do you have the border control if you're up against a lineup that's so strong on damage that is building up on the late game? I think this is a good path for Philippines.
Yeah.
And it's having a good jump start for the early game. Paired with Farsa, paired with Valier, I think that's good.
The only thing that, Valier is great because of just the way that his kit works, his mechanics. He's throwing fireballs. You land a couple in a row, you get a stun off, you can push the enemy team back. And, you really have to be on point for the most part with your fireballs and everything. But also, once that kit is up, you're kind of just running around for the most part, right? So really has to scale into this game.
Yeah,
Valier in a
mobility,
way
good
is a
point.
little bit of a risky choice, but we'll find out, right? We are going to get a little bit longer here to talk about this because Valier is not typically a hero you see pop up. Usually teams do like to pick this up though if they're dealing even with a Terizla, for example, because of the animation with the penalty zone is so like slow motion that he just torrents them away, pushes them away.
He has a heavy hammer.
For a reason.
If you break down the animation of the Terizla, you just need to make that surprise.
Yeah.
That is always about the flicker combo that you were mentioning, because if that flicker is gone, you lose that element. You lose the surprise.
The element of surprise,
Either
right?
you use your swinging hammer to just use it for either evade or escape, or even poke down the members of the enemy. But just having the right amount of burst, who's actually or can be a great way of a strength in surprises. Well, Canon's doing great work with that. So let's just hand it to him. We're looking over the same 2 picks from Philippines, and for the side, as you said, of Indonesia, Beefy Boys.
Yeah, this is going to be.
Sustain.
It's going to be hard though, man, because if you just again looking at that lineup, right? Not only the fact that Indonesia's lineup is very tanky, very durable. The same can be said for the Philippines to an extent, right? Having this Fredra and having this Terizla, but really that's it. On the other side, Indonesia, not only are they going to be able to peel, they can peel easily for that Beatrix, for Sakin here, but they have multiple options to initiate these fights if they want to, right? So if you're really worried here about that CC setup potential, it's the Philippines because of, again, you have a wild charge to work against from Indonesia. You just have Baksha rolling around, looking for sandwich plays, and that's what they usually do. Teams that pick up Baksha early on, not only are they focused on obviously getting the objectives and whatnot, but it's to put pressure in these lanes, top, bottom, sandwich them into a turret, and then usually pick up a kill, right? Not to mention they have a Navaria, man, who we have seen time and time again with just the way you use that Astral Echo, the Astral Recall, you're poking people down. You can really play around that. And one thing that I'm really looking forward to seeing is how this Minotaur works this time in the hands of Vin. Because, like I said, we saw it once yesterday. Didn't work out, right? It was there in essence, but the follow-up wasn't there.
Yeah, follow-up. I think now they have great answers for this Minotaur. You have more ways to actually hit those even pixels for the knockoff for the Minoan Fury with the aid of the Astral Recall and Astral Echo. But if you're talking about how will they deplete down the defenses of Indonesia's lineup right now, having the Baksha, the Grok, even the Minotaur, I think it all boils down how will the progress of the 2 mage heroes of Philippines will do in early game. You have the poke of the Feather Airstrike hitting level 4.
Yeah.
And with this Valier alone, you can actually visit more of the lanes, you actually get more vision, and you have more advantage of disabling once you get the pass or you got hit of one of the ultimates.
Well, we're jumping back into the game here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Game number 2. Indonesia drawing first blood in this grand final best of 5. Can the Philippines even it out? You're going to see them really trying to put pressure here early on, utilizing this Valier pick. That's what you see Unigo doing here. He has to be landing these fireballs and everything else. But at the same time, you have a couple defenses, right? And you are quite squishy. You can see it right here, already half health. He's got to be careful.
Yeah, Valir roam early on, you need to be wary of your distance. You need to be wary of your spacing because at some point early game, Super Ken and Vin with this kind of pair up, you could actually poke a lot out of this Valir. So you need to be careful as well. That's the knock up from Vin, using the concussive blast, passive front, hit him down, fireballs connecting onto Saison, hitting level 4. Will he be able to make it for the Appraiser's Rat? Just continuing that spam, Saison just completely peeling off slowly members of Indonesia.
Again, these burst fireballs, right, are crucial. Cannon
dropping low. Will he be still able to escape this one? Cannon falls down. Cerezo takes the first blood.
Man, it's a revenge, right? It's Cerezo getting the first blood here in that XP lane, dealing with Cannon on this Terizla. So, you know, and to be honest, honestly, we haven't seen too much XP lane Grok, right, for the most part. Before it was rather popular in a lot of other tournaments, but it's kind of fallen off a little bit. We're going to take a look at the replay here. This is kind of how it started again. That's just his death, but it was a well-played maneuver from Indonesia. Now with the first turtle up.
Looks like Vin going to be caught up by the stunt. Now with the Astro Recall being placed, Arcangel secures the kill with a fellow airstrike. Unigo trying to hold in with the border. With the reason of the turtle here, Philippines is looking forward more securely or securing the first objective of this game by just getting that purple out.
Both these gold laners gonna pretty much size each other up in this early game. Turtle's still gonna be worked on here, right? It looks like Philippines wants to go for it, but the response from Indonesia.
Cannon dropping down low on HP. There's some knock-up onto the follow-up of Cerezo's wild charge. Two-man bouncing off on the air. Vin takes down one. Indonesia completely bouncing back with his skirmish. Super Cannon Cerezo takes down Saison. Follow-up here with the Federal Strike for Arcangel. Will make it through the peel. Completely getting that objective. Indonesia winning that team fight.
Yeah, so again, it's still relatively even, right? But Turtle was secured there by Super Ken. He's been pretty on point for these objectives early on. Great initiation. You know, even Cerezo using that wild charge. Great Appraiser's Wrath response, but you can see there's a lack of damage right now. And yes, these are two magic damage dealers, but they still need time to scale up a little bit, right? Right now, economy-wise, pretty even. Nothing too big happening. That is Rakutiano picking up a DHS, though. He's got the Demon Hunter sword.
He's not letting go of Cannon right now, using the penalty zone counters, trying to slow him down with the turret spray. He's not right under the turret. He flickers in.
Wow.
Cannon trying to evade, he's trying to micro and right onto the turret, still sustaining that with a protection of his own outer turret energy shields. He lives.
Okay, again, you can see the focus on these XP lanes, right? They want to slow them down as much as possible. And that's the great thing about, anyway, Terizla, right? This XP lane is because of his passive, the Body of Smith. When he gets lower, right, he gets a little more tankier. It's harder to kill him. And at the same time, he's got Brave Smite, the emblem there that lets him, when he uses his abilities, he gains some health back. So that's what's making it so hard for them to capitalize on that kill in the bottom lane. So as we see Indonesia put pressure there, for how long though, right? How long can they continue to put that? Because at the end of the day, Cannon, just like Cerezo previously, even if you start out slow, at some point, mid-game, late game, your job is literally to be a front man and also hopefully land those penalty zones. But you can still see pressure being put here on Cannon.
Eyes on XP, Cerezo and Ken. Super Ken just poking out Cannon to just go out of the own turret. Now second turtle is up though. Astro Recall and Echo connecting to Saison and Unigo. Indonesia's present as well. Finn trying to use and utilize more of some knockups. Saison has been disabled, but Finn as well trying to hold on with a follow-up cannon here in Cerezo. Trying to eye on taking this one. Moreno though trying to walk in from behind. Arcangel still spamming all the way. Looking that damage coming from that Appraiser's Wrath. Saison secures the kill.
Okay. A response for that, but still giving up these turtles here, or at least being taken from under their noses. Indonesia doing a great job securing early objectives. Can they maintain it? Gold, economy-wise, pretty even. Interesting pickup too for Cerezo, picking up that Sea Halberd already this early on. That was his first item that he rushed here. So his job is literally to reduce some of that sustainability, some of that healing that's going on for the Philippines here. And they're off to a good start on countering some of that. Now, Philippines, on the other hand, you know, neither team has a turret down just yet. Next big objective is that turtle about a minute away here. things will start to fall into place because both these fights now have been 4 versus 4, right? The gold laners haven't been there. They've been farming up.
Unigo, wow, Saken secures the kill. The advantage, half HP onto Riccatiano, using that blazing duet to escape. Now Cerezo with a follow-up and the taking of the kill. Cerezo now being being bursted down by Arcangel, trying to get revenge out of the kill out of Riccatiano and Unigo. Now they're forced to clear more of the waves. They're forced to answer more and taking more turrets slowly out of Indonesia.
So with that, they're able to grab a good play on the top side. Philippines might be looking to make a response though, right? They have to. This is also a big item pickup for Unigo. At this point, almost 7 minutes into the game, it's getting crucial. These first and second items. Look at this as the replay. The shot lined up from Saken, able to get the kill. That's what I was talking about. And then keep an eye on Cerezo here. Comes in with a great wild charge, flicker combination. Great setup, top side. So now, third turtle is up for the game. Do both teams go at this 5 versus 5, or they keep doing it with just part of their lineup? Here they go.
Arcangel on half an HP, knock up coming in from Vin. Now being bursted, the Arcangel uses his own passive to escape that Wrath, but Saison though, looking for a way to end, taking down Vin. Now looking for an avenue, Super Ken being trapped in for Cerezo, can't do much. Now with the damage, all just checking, just to take down Super Ken. Riccatiano secures the kill. That was 4 from Philippines, trying to take him down.
Tough to deal with there, right? But Philippines at least gets themselves a turtle. So it's not a clean sweep for the Turtles. For Indonesia, they have some fight in them, right? That's why I was saying a lot of these items that are being picked up now at this point in the game are crucial. They'll turn the tide of some of these early skirmishes going on. Even if we take a look at this, right? Scaling department-wise for the Farsa pick on Arcangel, he has that COD. He's building up into his second item. It should be proving a point, especially when we get to the Lord fights, right? You need that burst damage available to the team here. And at the same time, you've got the slow already with the Ice Queen Wand for Unigo. So as they continue to scale up, will they be able to go toe-to-toe with these objective takes in about a minute from now? Here you go, you guys can see the items as well. 2 of the items locked in here for Riccatiano, and on the other side, Beatrix only has this BOD, right? Saken needs a little bit more time to get the next item here. Probably the Malefic Roar. That's tough. Saken goes down.
Cannon securing a kill. Saken gets his own first death. Unigo though, damage now slowly scorching through the damage. Cerezo as well. This is the top lane contention.
Yeah.
They're not letting go of this top lane just yet. It's 9 minutes into the game, and they don't want to let go of the control of their own defenses. We have the First Lord to show up, and just by looking at how they want to answer this, they want to hold and just be cautious of their next steps. Cannon using the penalty zone onto 2 will be able to secure a kill here. Fellow airstrike connected onto 2 as well. Burst down, will this be the answer? Canon falling down the hands of Moreno, securing another point for Indonesia. Unigo here trying to hold off and clear something out. Philippines taking another death. That's for a Cannon.
Yeah, then, okay, I was going to say he's going to land that fireball. He doesn't. So, unfortunate, but there is the Malefic Roar being picked up now by Saken, even though he went down just a little bit ago. That'll help him shred through some of these defenses from the Philippines. Now that they secure their buffs here, they're going to have to go ahead and fight for this. Less than half health.
Saison trying to taunt in Cerezo with a follow-up from Arcangel, being trying to burst Ken and Cerezo. Now they disengage. They just want the objective. They just want the poke. Saken taking down Unigo once again. And they just want to hold off. It's just the objective. It's just the items. And Philippines trying to get a trade. Taking down the first turret now with a follow-up. Finn falling down the hands of Cannon. Saison looking for a way to take this purple for himself.
Look at that. I mean, yes, the Lord went in the hands here of Indonesia, but Philippines knowing that, they try to find a counter punch themselves, some form or another. That was the first turret they were able to secure now. Here's the answer, though.
Now being stunned right on to 3. Saison takes down Saken, finally getting a kill.
Wow.
Follow up with Super Can. Cannon takes a point as well. Cannon looking for a way to chase off or push Cerezo out of the equation. But Riano with the follow-up in the trade. They take down slowly their objectives to their own hands. A push down bottom.
Again, great response here from the Philippines. Even giving up or having that Lord taken from them. They handle it quickly, they get a couple kills, they get a lead, right? They have now a very short, small lead in the gold department. They're going to be able to scale up with some of that. Now Indonesia has to be able to respond, right? Yes, they're getting these objectives. They have to continue to get that space in terms of, you know, areas around the map. Both teams have 2 turrets down, right? Now, the big part of this, if you're Indonesia, is also, you got to get that tier 1 down in the mid lane, man, because as the next Lord comes up, that small advantage of having this turret will play a part in that Lord dance, right? They'll be able to manage some of that wave a little bit better, so that should be job number 1 before this Lord comes up. Moreno picking up an Ice Queen wand will help pick off a little bit, slow things down, but this is what I was talking about. At some point, Arcangel will have that Divine Glaive that he needs, a little more bursty on this far side now.
Spotted down 1, Super Ken receives the poke. Cannon, Saison eyeing over Super Ken and Cerezo. That's a follow-up, that's a flicker onto Cannon. He's still sustaining it though. Regadiano trying to find an avenue. Where will he go in? That's a 3-man knockup. Saison takes down Cerezo, and it's a follow-up being using the Federation against Philippines right now. Arcangel takes another kill. Socken falls down. Saison with the follow-up. Vin being taken down. 3 members out of Indonesia.
Man, Unigo just cooked Vin right there with the fireball, literally cleaning that up, and that is tough, right? It looked so good for a moment because the Minoan Fury was great. It found multiple members, but the response from the Philippines, they overlapped some of those ultimates very well. And even Recutiano able to go in with Blazing Duet. He used that Purify. He goes back in with the BMI, safely surviving that in exchange. Now that this Lord is up, still going back to the point, Indonesia still doesn't have that tier 1 in the mid lane down. This makes it a little bit harder dealing with this space to work with, right? You're going to see them bunch up here. They have to get this information, but it's quickly taken down.
Regadiano trying to poke down Super Ken. His health is dropping by the second. Now Cannon secures another knockup, being taunted by Saison. Now Super Ken falls down, follow up with Cannon. Now Vin being in trouble. Appraiser's Rock connecting to the damage. Saison takes down Vin. 2 member down on the Lord and the push in the mid. Philippines slowly getting a grip on the push and slowly eyeing on the base of Indonesia.
Again, a win there for the Philippines, furthering that gold lead. They might just look to push it in here. Timers aren't too out of control, but unless they press this situation, this could be 1 for 1.
1 for 1, base is open. Philippines might able to take it down Cerezo. Regadiano getting a point on the damage. Now Philippines once again pushing slowly.
No minions.
Eyeing top turret here, minions just pushing in. Can Moreno and Socken defend Super Ken as well, but it's too much already for Indonesia. Philippines bounces back with 1 point in this best of 5.
We got a series on our hand. 1 for 1. They've evened it out in this best of 5, like you mentioned, in a great performance, a great recovery here from the Philippines. Again, you look at that game, Indonesia was doing great things, you know, from early to mid, and then it was a couple of these team fights that really just turned things over, you know, in favor. That pendulum, the way the pendulum swings here for the most part, again, even on that macro level, some of these turrets staying up when they should have been taken down earlier on. And not just that, but even the decisiveness of utilizing the kits that you have for the Philippines, whether that's the penalty zone, whether that was even the Appraiser's Wrath a lot of the times, paired up with a great Blazing Duet. Things fell into place perfectly. And it's unfortunate because I love seeing the Minotaur here, man. I did. It's the second time we've seen him in the playoffs, and it's the second time we've seen this pick loose. And it's not that it's even bad. It's just unfortunate because you get that Minoan Fury off. You got a little bit of sustain for your team, you know.
Yeah.
CC potential was great too because you had Cerezo on the Grok, but still, when it came down to it, it was just not enough. You know, I mean, even the time-wise for the gold laner matchups, it just wasn't enough just yet.
Well, speaking of which, let's pull up our MVP for this game, and it's none other than looking for Saison. You pronounced it correctly. You said Arcangel correctly.
Yeah, you know, I switch between the Archangel and Arcangel. Just, you know.
Sounding perfect, man. Saison is our MVP for game number 2 for Philippines. Having the Fredrin complementing the Forza and even the Turisla, having a 6-1 and 8 KDA. Using the Blade Armor and the Molten Essence, just buy these 2 item pickup. You deflect more, you sustain more, And with this passive and courage of having the tough boost for your early game start, is giving your team so much advantage in team fights, in initiations, even in engages.
Yeah, and you know, it wasn't even just like, it's crazy that he does get this MVP here. It's good. It's a huge statement because, again, Fredrin is not your typical, you know, like when you think of MVPs from winning teams, Fredrin, I would say, rarely gets it, right? There are times, again, where Fredrins pop off. They go like Assassin Fredrin or Psycho Fredrin.
XP Fredrin, yeah.
Yeah, this one was more like, again, the utility of this, because you remember, he lost those first 2 turtles, right? It wasn't there, but the fact that you have a ton of CC alone, taunts, knockups, and then the Appraiser's Wrath, I think that's what really stuck out here was the timing on the Appraiser's Wrath, you know, for a lot of times, because it just blanketed a ton of damage. And again, I think Valir, too, on top of it, really helped this whole lineup work, right? We don't see Valir much, but because of the way he works with the burst fireball mechanics, getting the stuns off, and able to, in a way, for your whole team, you know, not just for yourself, you can searing torrent people away, the opponents away, keeping a peel, you know, option for your team, worked out really well. I just think that Valir still, it's a great pick, but it's not something you're going to continuously see like pop up. It was almost like that Diggy,
He got
right?
shut down early game.
Yeah, he had some trouble.
What more so, the most important thing is just having the toolkit with you.
Right.
The Vengeance Flame, even as I said, the Searing Torrent. Just by the passive alone, you can complement so many hits for the Farsa. As Archangel builds up for this first and second item, is completely using the Lethal Ignition proc. That's just complete magic damage, and some of the players back then are even forced to even build up with the defense for magic.
They had to. Because not only that, but you had a Farsa across from you too, and you saw that before that game ended.
Yeah.
That Divine Glaive was like just picked up, so if we even extended that game further, you know, that's more magic damage, that's more burst potential, right? So again, great series so far. It's 1 for 1. We're going to be taking a short break, let the players reset, and we'll be back after this.
And we are back in this best of 5. It's 1-1, Philippines versus Indonesia, and this is still the grand finals of MLBB right here in Iași, Romania, the World Esports Championships 2023. And it's so hot right now, even the matches are so hot. Even the weather is coping up with the heated tension from the matches we saw from Game 1 to Game 2.
There's a lot of, again, game to game, a lot of tension in the game, right? You can feel it, but again, what is at stake here? And it's Indonesia trying to defend their title from last year. Number one, they were off to a great start in Game 1. It was neck and neck, nearly a 30-minute game. This one, it looked like it was going to be along the same route, but the Philippines kind of figure things out a little bit better, right, with this lineup. And one thing that I'm loving so far here, OSX, is some of these changes in the draft. So far for 2 games, we've now seen something different, right? Metas are always established, from tournament to tournament. We've seen these picks often, but now that you have some variation here, it's great to see because it's changing the dynamic of the game, right?
Yeah.
The Valier, the Diggy, and there's even more. Minotaur was, no way, still a little bit of a surprise. It's a little bit of a new flavor. We saw it yesterday, that was there, but still, ultimately, this is what you can expect from these teams. And as they flip sides once again for the Game 3 draft, this is where things get dicey. Now that it's basically down, there could possibly be 3 more games. It gets crucial, right? You really have to see, do these teams want to go for what they've done in the previous 2 games, where you kind of expect some uniqueness, experimentation to pop up. But we know that both these countries have a very solid foundation, the lineups that they like to draft, the way that they like to play. So do they opt for that again? Or do they have some of this uniqueness or these aces up their sleeve here?
Uniqueness and aces? Well, on the draft, Philippine answered it correctly with having the utility more of the sustain. Even on the magic department and the damage, having the Farsa and the Valier, it complemented more on the team fights, but also gave so much time for their marksman as well. The Claude and the Terizla, they made it work this time in game number 2. For the other side, though, they have coverage of vision, yes. It was kind of like once the Astral Recall has been placed, they're always like forced to have a takedown, have a gank. But from that moment, it was like, how do you even match with the damage if you're approaching even just mid-game? Having a Novaria, you would actually need that just to have more to melt something down on the Philippines' defenses.
I still am looking forward again to some of those priority picks number 1, right? We've seen a little bit of difference there. At the same time, I still see both these teams really competing for Novaria. Like, she's just so good in any of these lineups. Number 1, like, for the most part, yes, she's been banned here and there, but, at the end of the day, how can you really count out vision, poke, and just even providing
Peel.
Just, anything really. Novaria works so great, but, the response being usually a Valentina or usually something else, it does work out against it. But we don't even have to worry about it here because it's banned out, right? This time, once again, Philippines will be on the blue side, Indonesia on the red. Similar bans to an extent, but now that Novaria and Eve aren't there, what's the priority? Wow, okay, it's Brody.
Right away
To go in the hands of Requitiano here. And again, if you want a little review of what happened yesterday and the days prior, a lot of these MVPs for the Philippines went to the hands of Requitiano on Brody himself. So this is a strong first pick. Response from Indonesia, though. Probably going to be maybe a Terizla, maybe a Fredrin, right? Those are left open. Those are hot picks. We'll see if they go that route or they want to do something else here.
Well, I agree with how Philippines is doing right now with the prio of the Brody. They took out the Novaria, you mentioned, it's so effective. But okay.
Neither
of it.
We're going to the Nether Realm.
Nether Realm, we have Turles Puissance, and also with just having not seeing the Paquito or the Franco or even the Kaja Kadita on this game gives so much freedom for Brody to actually roam around. Landing those hits correctly, using the torn apart memory properly in those kind of minded distance that you get in team fights. I think it's a safe space still for Philippines. It changes the route though, but still what's open the table is Valentina and Fredrin would actually be beneficial also with this Brody start.
If the Valentina's locked in here to go against this Faramis pick, that's throwing it back a little bit, right? to a meta we were once. I don't know how people felt about that. Once really happy about, or they enjoyed or not. Still, it's an option, but neither will be picked up. There's the Fredgen, though. Esports as well. I think this is a great choice. And then Indonesia right away in a snap taking up this Uranus pick in the XP lane. So
That's a good steal, though.
Yeah, how are things falling in place here? Again, Esports I think is a great option in the sense that even if you go 0-3 like we saw in game 1, you still have impact through the course of the game just based on the way that he works, being able to push people back, kind of making them disperse with the last insanity. Good call there, though. The response from Indonesia for the second phase of bans, they take out the Valentina.
Yeah, they have sustain. You have more ways to counter the early game of a Hulk coming from an Esports, Uranus, getting a good amount of winning stats.
Yeah.
From group stages, we see it again now for the EXP. This is a great answer for longer team fights because game number 1, we were seeing tug of war. Extended team fights, push and pull, disengage. With this kind of zone now, with this kind of access to the back line, gives so much potential for their marksman to have a good angle. But since Indonesia doesn't have their marksman yet, they ban out the Valentina. That's a good way of seeing their counter as well, or having that dash just go through you and take an ultimate out. Well, that's one way to secure it. But having a Uranus with you, this opens up also the possibility for the Beatrix to even be used again.
Oh, good. Interesting, right? That's just respect there.
Valier.
Yeah.
Regardless of how the Valier side of the game number 2 is still a problem, but just being a utility.
It's almost a similar fashion, right? Like, even if you have a rough early game on Valier, it's just kind of annoying to deal with because, like, the whole game, you're like, all right, how do I dodge these fireballs? How do I not get stunned? You know, how do I find an entry point and not be pushed away to completely negate what we want to do, right? So, solid last ban there from Indonesia. We'll see what the last one is here from the Philippines. But, you know, in a similar fashion, Indonesia, great that they have the Uranus. Might not be the most exciting hero, right? But what he does really well, aside from cutting waves even in the base, is the fact that he is just a unit, right? He will literally 1 versus 4 for the majority of the game, you know, until you can really handle that sustain. And then, you know, you try to follow up on it. And then, like you mentioned, you're really trying to extend some of these team fights, right? The Fairness is there for a reason. Use the Nether Realm. We've seen some clutch, game-changing NetherRealm ultimates from Fairness players, right? And that has something to say about why Indonesia wanted to take it up in the first phase. This is another pick
good.
that
Melissa
has performed pretty well.
up against a Brody, especially. And the problem of utilizing models just being thrown at you and using the eyes on you, because we know how Brody maintains his distance, maintains his space just to get on with the basic hits. But this Melissa, building towards mid to late game and just land all those hits correctly, that's just distance working for you and using a lot of damage.
Well, again, at this point, you have to really decide, what do you want to take here? Your last 2 picks for the Philippines, right? You need to be able to round this out really well. You still need a good magic damage hero. And there it is, Farsa. What a better, none other, actually, this really isn't a better way to do this. And this is interesting. This time, they draft the Minotaur. So, you know, this in a way, it's like, hey, we're going to give it a go and see if it makes this work. Because right now, Minotaur in the playoffs, he's 0-for-2. He really hasn't found success yet, but that doesn't say that this hero isn't great. It can be. We'll see if they have the follow-up to do with this. Now, one thing that I like about the dynamic between these 4 heroes alone, aside from the Brody for the Philippines, is there's so much pressure, AoE-wise and space-wise, with the kits that they have. And then you're kind of just allowing Brody, right, to get the marks off, to get the torn apart memory off, hopefully. And that's where the pressure is. So, wow, here we go. A favorite for both these countries, and a favorite for a lot of viewers out there. They love to watch Fanny gameplay. In the jungle, it's going to go in the hands of Super Ken.
Okay. More response. Just Indonesia surprising everybody on the last pick. It was the first time was the Diggy, now the Fanny. They had more ways of performing with this pick and having great coverage around him, as you mentioned. There's so much AoE. There's so much CC on Philippines that they actually make use of. So with this kind of way of disturbing all of the lanes, even their own camp has an advantage of damage just by having a great start early on.
Okay. as both teams have their compositions locked in. We'll have to see exactly, again, on the execution factor for both of them. We know that they can control the early game really well. We know they like to pressure these side lanes. We'll see if they can do it.
It's game number 3. 1-1. Indonesia versus Philippines having the same point. As we dwell upon all those choices back in the draft, this is a greater choice now for Unigo. Having that Minoan Fury, having that knockup, as you mentioned, the space right now that they can do for team fights is so important. In game number 1, they were trying to look for an opportunity to make the perfect set, because at some points in this kind of lineup, when you're up against a Fanny, even a Melissa, you might want to penetrate from the back.
Yeah, you have to focus on that, right? Again, when we talk about this Fanny pick alone, we talk about specifically high risk, high reward. You know, when we saw this even yesterday, we're like, man, okay, when you pick in a Fanny, for example, you're either playing in style. Well, no, really you are just playing in style. You're trying to style and also snowball. Like, one of the big things about this pick alone, which we're going to see in a bit for Super Ken, is how fast can he set the momentum, right, for Indonesia here. If it's 1 or 2 kills on a jungler like Fanny, because this is a hyper-focused assassin, right? The past 2 games, man, we've seen a lot of utility, tanky type junglers. Yeah. This time, it's a battle between that utility type jungler in the hands for the Philippines, and then of course you have Fanny and Super Ken. He's also, as we get a glimpse here while we still wait for a bit, Super Ken is rolling with a killing spree, right? And so now you're wondering, can you get the snowball going faster than your opposing team? That's what they're going for. So we'll see if Indonesia can execute that the way they wanted to go with this draft. It's super important that they really utilize it.
Yeah, now early game. Okay, going back. Slowly on to this best of 5. It's game number 3. Philippines versus Indonesia. Having the same point. And then as we wait to get into the land of dawn, a lot of things can be speculated. A lot of things can be broken down.
There we go.
But how will the execution work though? Early game, we have level 3 onto Arcangel and Unigo. And Regatiano, having the AJ for the gold lane, pushes a lot of pressure. Look at that. Oh, speaking of which.
This is exactly what I was talking about. Super Ken looking for that first blood. Great defensive maneuvers. Vin could be in trouble now. Nowhere to escape. A couple hits away. Who's it going to? They give it to Arcangel on this Farsa. Solid pickup.
Good response. Good follow-up though. Early game, they know that they need more great start with the waves and also getting at the items. But that was just 4 members trying to take down Vin. An amazing response, an amazing follow-up. That slows down more of the potential for, again, for the objective that can be taken, but he's still stuck on level 3 as of now.
And as we get through this, right, this is the first turtle now up here. And with that first blood, it will help them a little bit. It's not going to change the course too much. Both teams still trying to get to level 4. This could, though. So Rizzo might be in trouble. Fraser's Wrath not going to find the kill there. Had to use the Consecrate. His ultimate's down now. Should be able to regen a little bit, but still, Philippines in control of this first turtle. Vin also making his way, not able to get that level 4 just yet. They're going to have to battle this out. Might just go in the hands of Philippines. Nowhere to be found. Super Ken. There it is, the retribution. Turtle secured here for Philippines early on. And it looks like they're going to keep going. Vin going to be in trouble. Falls once again in the hands of Arcangel. Gets the second kill. It was Super Ken trying to put the pressure on the purple buff. Trading that objective possibly to take some resources. And that will not work for their favor.
Good front line cover. Follow-up from Unigo and wings by wings from Arcangel's trying a bit of a burst poke against Uranus and as well as the Baksha. Now looking by this progress right now on our screens, and even for the items, you have the Clock of Destiny present for Arcangel, and as well as slowly building up for defense for the export, we have the Warrior Boots. So maintaining more of these lanes. Hold up.
Oh.
Sorizo.
Sorizo.
3.
Yeah, that's tough, right? Again, we did mention in the draft, he's going to be going 1 versus 3, but not there. That time it didn't work out for him. He needs a little bit more time to get a little tankier. This is crucial, though, man. Early on, we're just nearing the 4-minute mark. And when you have a Farsa this stacked 3-0 early on, it's tough to deal with because the burst potential comes way sooner. So now we'll see them fight it out, putting the pressure on the purple buff. They know how much Super Ken needs it here. They either want to force out the retribution or possibly steal this themselves. Everybody joining the fight at this point. They're going to go for it. Super Ken will fall. Cannon on the run. Chorizo was trying to get the kill, won't be able to get it, has to back off. It's getting tough here for Super Ken. Again, this is what you want to do when you pick a high assassin-based hero like Fanny. You want to be able to scale really quickly, fast, and it's not happening right now for Indonesia.
Arcangel, with just having a small amount of health, good positioning and utilization of the Feather Airstrike aided a kill from Indonesia. Taking down Super Ken by just taking his own purple, pushed them in a corner to even respond for a defense. So that was a good way of pressuring them. As you mentioned, being dependent onto the purple buff is one thing that they can utilize against them. So we have the turtle up, and Philippines has more control here onto their own area. So Saison and Ecuadoriano, though,
They just give it up.
give it up as well. So Vin trying to see a potential for a retry battle, but no, he just taking some vision now.
Yeah, Vin might be in trouble once again. This could be a third death, and it is. Recutiano picks up the kill here. And what you're seeing is just Indonesia trying to find some type of win. If that's just these buffs, if that's just these camps around the map, trading these objectives, it's what they have to do. At this early point in the game with this momentum-based lineup, their backs are against the wall, right? So in essence, Super Ken gets this orange buff here on the side of the Philippines. They might look for a moment, look for a play, but look where Saison is here. He's going for the purple buff. So they might clash here. The fight for it. Look at the pressure. Arcangel has to go out with the wings by wings. There's the feathered airstrike. Quite a bit of damage though. Super Ken will fall. Can't get away with the cables. Unigo did fall as well. They finally get on the board here, but Sakin also went down. Off-camera kill here. 2 fall for Indonesia, plus the first turret of the game in the hands of the Philippines.
Clearly, Philippines having a great start with the push and also with the takedown. Super Ken falling down again. 0-2-0. Having the Blade of Heptasis press on his first item actually denies the passive of the proc. The ambush, speaking of which, take that down. Super Ken has taken another, again, an objective and a kill for his own.
Man, right now, like I said, you're kind of just scraping for what you can, you know, and with Super Ken getting that kill there, that is probably one of the better things that can happen to him at this point in the game. You know, he's losing some of these buffs, he's finding what he can, and so that's literally the response, right? Chorizo, once again, trying to go multiple members here, can't heal up enough, will fall in enemy territory. It's getting dicey there for Chorizo in that XP lane.
Yeah. XP lane right now is getting more attention. So into its own lane of Cannon right now, still holding his own defense with a stand of 8-2. Advantage of gold and economy is now with Philippines. Last turtle of the game, Indonesia would really want to contest this. They need that extra boost on the gold right now. He needs more items. They need more items for damage. Meanwhile, on down bottom, Cannon has his own immortality and just looking away just to take down this turret.
And as they go through this game, you can already see the nice lead that Philippines has garnered themselves. That's going to be another turtle for Saison. Vin, taking the brunt of the damage, is quite tanky at this point though, despite going down multiple times. Can he hold on a little bit longer? The rest of his team not able to help him. It's just him versus 4, whittled down, taken out here by Recutiano. Another kill in the hands of this gold lane. Chorizo just trying to hold it down. This is looking rough. Oh man, he almost got away, but paired up there. A great combination from the Philippines.
Level 11. Saison on this Fredrin, onto this taunt, onto this tool. By this alone, adding so much engage, so much gank on the own lane. Speaking of which, Super Ken now being spotted down, being spotted up by Cannon and Saison. Recutiano now has the Wind of Nature, and this might be a greater chance to even hold the front line, but just being and connecting more of his hits. But now he can't actually move out or trying to remove Sakin out of the picture. He's building up with his items. He has the corrosion side, he has the DHS, probably building up to amplify those basic hits. Having or using the models right away in these kind of team fights can actually work for Indonesia.
This is tough. The assault in the mid lane, tier 1's the focus here. Vin will take the brunt of the damage. isn't able to keep them at bay. Canon goes in with the last insanity, finds another kill. Sorizo falls for the 4th time here. It's getting tough. Moreno now looking to hold down the mid lane as much as possible. Has to flicker out too. You wonder if it was worth it even going that far in the mid lane. And now down a flicker here. 20 seconds away from this Lord. 3 turtles taken by the Philippines. Is Indonesia actually in a position to contest this? They're gonna lose the purple as well for Super Ken. He doesn't have that. This buff right here, stolen by the Philippines, is super crucial for a hero like Super Ken on this Fanny. If he doesn't have it, he loses a lot of that ability to move around, and that's why he's planning himself, taking a risk to possibly get another. Look at the damage. Arcangel, he gets him off camera, but around the buff. So they lose a member. Can they somehow contest this Lord down? A lot of magic damage. Gonna be going for it. Torn apart memory. Recutiano trying to save this fight. Goes in with the jump. No Fury from Unigo. Huge setup though. Turning it around. Double kill already. Last insanity going to use. Here's Super Ken. Can he turn it around? He goes in, gets the killing spree, and gets out of dodge. The Lord will reset.
What an advantage, trying to get the first kill. Recutiano is not yet stopping. That is a 6-1 and 4 onto this Brody. Eyeing the first tier turret in mid. Philippines takes it down and has a better way in taking this Lord.
They might start it up here. They know that in just a couple seconds, Saison will be up. He'll make his way to this Lord if they need him. But Super Ken, mobile as he is, will get here for the information, the possibility to steal the Lord away. They're gonna hold it up, it resets. Again, both teams fighting for this first Lord of the game. This will help them push into each other's bases, focusing on these turrets. They're gonna go ahead and give it a go. Vin goes in, rolls in.
Super
gonna
Ken
get dragged a little bit. There's the knock up, he's in trouble, will fall. Super Ken is still waiting, down a member. Vin is
looking
gone.
for a chance.
Gonna come down to the retribution. Unigo gonna spot him out. Can he go in? No, it's secured by Saison, and Super Ken has to get out.
Okay, now all of the objectives slowly being cleaned up by Philippines, forcing them to attack. Super Ken dropping on half HP. Cannon as well securing most of the front line and just pushing towards the mid lane. We have a follow-up also from the Lord up top. Defensive-wise, or defense item-wise, Philippines has more ways to answer the sustain of a Faramis right now against Moreno.
So for Indonesia, look at this. They're working down from an 8,000 gold deficit. Super Ken is left to decide, what do I do? Is it to get a kill here on Recutiano? He's going to go ahead and try. Wind of Nature already popped. He has a couple of marks on him. Torn apart memory! Will not be able to get him because of the range. He stays alive for now.
That was so close. That was really close. If he had an extra distance, he could have gone down right away.
He's cabling. He's cabling.
We need to check the defense department right now of Indonesia. We have Oracle and Dominance Ice present for the Uranus, a bit of a frontline cover, but for their own roam. We have the COD, we have the Lightning Truncheon, we have Mana. He has more ways to respond and to complete more of the CDR.
Okay, they're going to go ahead and assault the base here. First Lord of the game will be able to get them a turret. Vin taking quite a bit of damage. Has nowhere to go. Will fall in the jungle. Last Insanity pushing them back. They'll be able to clear this Lord here. Can Super Ken get a kill?
Cannon.
Can't. Cannon has the immortality, still able to stay up as well. They're in trouble, so Rizzo, couple hits away, will survive for now. Minoan Fury goes through. Netherrealm taken care of. Might be looking to end the game here. Super Ken trying to turn the tide of this fight. They lose the mid turret as well. Still looking for a kill. They push back the Philippines. They're playing with risk here. They have to turn this around. They're gonna go in. Sorizo goes past the wall. Arcangel will fall, and they're still going. The Philippines might be in trouble here. Recutiano popping the Wind of Nature, looking for the kill. Can he get it? Sakin stays alive with the go away, and they hold on. But meanwhile, Sorizo 1 versus 4 will fall in the jungle. But Super Ken sweeps in, gets his buff.
There was just fights all over, looking for a way to shut down 1 or 2 members out of these teams. Sorizo falling down, Vin falling down, looking just by the damage. They're capitalizing on Sakin to get those kills and items in by looking at those bursts coming from this Melissa. He has now the golden staff. He has more ways to utilize this Inspire. It's on cooldown, but it's so much effective. Being in the front line, Moreno, even by the presence of this Uranus, is a better way to buy more time and to throw models right away and use that I'm on you. I can see potential of a comeback here for Indonesia. If they keep holding this time, if they keep buying more time and find an avenue to go for a back line against Philippines, it's the answer for them to take a great fight up until this Lord is about to be taken.
Now that both junglers focus on this area of the Lord here, you're going to see them get in position once again. Super Ken has to get the information he needs to really contest this, but keep an eye on the map. There's some pressure here that the Philippines wants to put on. Philippines does this. That's exactly what they go for. And now, as the Lord is still worked on here, held at half health, this is that Lord dance, like we like to call it. Both teams just holding it down. The purple buff is up. They know that Super Ken needs this. They have the information they need. They're going to make him try to either use the Retribution or get it.
No.
He uses the Retribution to secure the purple buff. They have the information, and Philippines will punish for that, taking the Lord here. It's up to Indonesia to defend against this Lord push.
Good resource forced out. Super Ken, he needs that purple. He needs that important objective, being just the Fanny, the damage dealer, and also Salkan here being pressed on the team fights. They actually would really want that, but that time around, it was just Philippines. They were diverting the attention, and they were just taking down the Lord. Now they're pushing in mid.
And this is what it could come down to for Indonesia here. They've got to deal with this Lord. They got to deal with the minions. There's the CC coming through. Ken, he's in trouble. The pickup, that is huge for the Philippines as they assault the base here. Looking to take game number 3. Last Insanity pushing them back, and there's nothing that Indonesia can do. Down 2 members. They'll focus on the crystal here and take game number 3.
Philippines is now having another chance. 2-1 against Indonesia.
Match point.
Match point for Team Philippines. It is best of 5. Slowly. What a great start. A dominating, strong start from Philippines.
This is what I was saying. Anytime you see a Fanny, there's a reason why a lot of fans love to see it, because of the fact that it is a very risky pick. And you could see as that game unfolded how much attention the Philippines was putting on the resources, on the buff. The most important one there, the purple buff for that Fanny, really putting the pressure there, down to that time where it was, do you want to use your Retribution for this purple buff, or do you want to actually come here and probably contest this Lord?
2 things.
It's hard to decide from there, right? So
they were also low on defense.
Tough.
They're also low on sets. They're also low on pickups. How will you even get a catch onto the movement, or even the rotation of Philippines is doing? Macro-wise, they have completely diverted the attention of what they can actually do to bounce back in that game.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they had to do at that point, you know, and then really when you're left to your whims there for Indonesia and you're trying to find any saving grace in that game, you know, really you're kind of just scrapping. Like, that's what we saw from them. And I'm even surprised with Cerezo, man. Like, he died early on and continued to try to do what usually, you know, Uranus is doing, but unfortunately it didn't work out. So let's take a look at the MVP here for this matchup. A win for the Philippines. It could go either way, but this one is going to go over to Rectiano. Man, did I say, when it was locked in the draft, how many times you guys can rewind on the stream. How many times did I say, when Brody is picked up for the Philippines, Rectiano is probably going to get MVP. It's happened multiple times for this tournament, 12-1-6. He was massive here. The damage per minute is insane. And there's a reason, once again, why they really scale up really well here and why they perform so well with this Brody pick is just the amount of teamwork to allow your gold laner to get this type of game is massive work in the early game.
Yeah. Having the BOD first, having the Blade of Heptasis right onto his hands, having an independent lane.
Yeah.
Just building, taking all the waves, taking all the turrets down. 12, 1, and 6. He's maintaining this death record, either 0 or 1.
Yeah, his overall KD has to be, I don't even know what it would be,
that.
but he's had a lot of
maintaining
deathless games too on Brody,
Yeah,
right?
and
So-
just by this Brody alone in his hands, still maintaining this good record. An amazing performance for Roquetiano.
And I think with that said, now that they're at match point, of course they're going to get a little reset here for the players, but there's a lot that you can take from this. Even when we were talking about the draft for Indonesia, in a way, it's like, do you want to go for that risky playstyle, or do you want to go with this foundation? And I feel like here, that's what we saw for the most part from the Philippines. This, mind you, also, by the way, is a win for Minotaur. Like, he finally got his win.
Finally
man.
getting an advantage. Finally increasing that win rate.
Finally got his win.
Good.
And
Yeah, that's
if
a knock-up.
you saw the
That's a CC.
You saw the great setups.
Answering everything.
You saw the great setups there, and so well played. I'm just wondering, how do you adjust from that? Because this was a little more of a risky lineup for Indonesia in a way, just having one of those junglers. So I'm kind of expecting them for the next matchup to opt for a safer jungle, right? Go that route.
Let's see how this goes. How will Indonesia bounce back? Because Philippines right now is on match point. So we will take a short breather here. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Welcome back here to Yash Romania Live. We are in the grand finals for MLBB here, and it's down to a match point for the Philippines, trying to get the title from Indonesia. Again, champions last year in Bali, and it could be down to this. We could have one more game. We could have 2 games going in this best of 5. How are we feeling so far, Francis?
So heated up. The match right now is so heated up, even by the weather. You can tell how this match is so amazing. Facing a familiar foe, will they be able to take the title away from Indonesia? But in this match point, it still could go both ways. Philippines has a way to recover all of those mistakes that they went from game number 1 and proceeded with an advantage of momentum from game number 2. But this time, we still can't count out Indonesia. They have ways, they have the experience, they have more ways to persevere through these kinds of challenges that we've seen from the group stages to the playoffs. And even from this, a lot of things could still be on the table.
One of the reasons why you can't count out Indonesia is because they are a country known for some of the best MLBB in the world, alongside the Philippines.
Yep.
And at the same time, these players obviously have what it takes to turn things around, right? We've seen crazy things in this playoffs alone. 10,000 goal deficits, games being turned around with just decisive moments, right? Decisive moments within the game. Indonesia can do that. And with this, as they have to adjust, let's talk about that. How can they take us to a game 5 to potentially defend that title? They have to be able to adjust in the draft. And I think, the last game, again, was a little bit of risk. And it again, just a Fanny alone is risk, like quite a bit of risk in a lineup, right? So again, I'm thinking that you want to opt for a foundation lineup. And the thing too that was interesting is the way that they drafted, right? They picked up that Baksha. It actually went into the hands of Vin. It was a roam. And most people are naturally thinking, based on statistics from what we've seen, that Baksha was going to go in the jungle. It didn't, right? So there's this whole kind of mind game to this too. Once we do get to that draft, is what do they prioritize? What kind of game plan do they have? And are they able to execute it well? Again, something that was really surprising here, just alone with the Philippines, was the fact that they finally made Minotaur work, right? I mean, again, this is a pick that has not performed very well here in the playoffs. And so now you put that as a factor because, most teams would count it out, to be honest.
Yeah.
And they really wouldn't think about drafting it. But after the performance that we just saw, and the Brody, who I'm expecting is either banned out or taken for Indonesia, you don't know if you're going to have to deal with that again, right? The setups were so well timed from the Philippines the previous game, so Indonesia has to be able to play around that. And what we saw from them in that game where they gave the Philippines their first loss of the entire tournament was the power of that Diggy pick, and I'm not sure if that's the answer here, but it's definitely an option.
I love what you're going through. It could be a possible comeback of a pick for a Diggy as we go into the draft.
What do they go for?
And they go for the Navaria. They have the space, they have vision, they have poke. Taking out and respecting the Kadita and also the Brody and even the Franco removes all the singular target pickoffs, and this time around, they could actually make an assassin pick work. But also for Philippines, banning out this 3 staple heroes that actually deal damage on team fights, pickoffs, and AoE poke. Eve, Kaja, and Paquito. They will have their chances now to either secure the utility. They could go for the Freddy, they could go for the Valentina themselves, or even for the Faramir.
See value in me?
Well, they go with the Fredrin and the Farsa. The pick,
Sustain and burst.
the pick that has been working wonders for the Philippines right now. And previous game, he had 3 kills early on, I think something along those lines. The first blood, then it built up to 3 kills, and when that happens and you get that first scaling item very quickly compared to a traditional build path or timing, that changes the course of the early game. So they might be looking to emulate that process here for this next match. And with that, here's the answer. Indonesia actually takes up this Baksha. This time, I'm assuming it's going in the jungle, right? For the most part. Because again, Novaria was priority picked. We have seen her flexed in the roam. We have seen her parked in the mid lane. But there's the X-Borg as well.
Okay.
So, similar.
That's danger. For this Farsa, on the positioning of the Farsa and in the hands of Arcangel. He needs to be wary on where this X-Borg will be. Where will the last Insanity will be? Well, this is a growing threat. Early game, hits level 4. Both of them can actually disable one another. It's moving out the burst.
It's a growing threat, but I'm going to be a little, Cerezo here, he's got to be careful on how he approaches this early game. We saw it before, right? He made up for it in that one game he played X-Borg. He died 3 times early on. He still had an impact. Previous game, he was playing the Uranus, tried to do the same thing. It didn't work out. He was really shut down. So Cerezo alone has to be able to adjust for this game. It's great that he has the X-Borg, right? But can he actually be impactful early on and not just have those multiple deaths going on? Because Last Insanity is great, but at the same time, you have to be able to serve that purpose in the XP lane. With the Valier being picked up here from the Philippines, this is also what we saw earlier on in the series. It worked out great for them. It's kind of annoying to deal with, right? You're going to get stunned. The burst fireballs are not fun to deal with.
Okay, going back on your thought on that X-Board, he had a 3-death shutdown in the first 2 minutes.
Yep.
And by that, Indonesia found a way to have a comeback. That was this game in the match earlier that actually made everything work. With the aid of their marksman, the Brody, or even a different way to utilize it with their own mage pick here could actually be beneficial no matter what comes next. You said you don't want those numbers, the death numbers, to just keep on rising for these roamers and for these XP laners. It's a big of a factor in taking yourself into an addition or an advantage on getting the first turtle objective.
Honestly, what I see happening here, let's see what this last ban is, but for the most part, because the Brody was taken out, I love that. That's great respect from Indonesia, because like we were saying, multiple MVPs. And off the top of my head, I was like, well, what gold lane is Indonesia going to take? And off the top of my head, it would be the Beatrix, but since that's banned out, you're kind of left to a couple of these options. We've seen Melissa pop up, but most likely I'm going to assume, let's see if they take the, never mind, the Claude also gets banned out. So now, we've narrowed down the gold lane, right? And usually when we get to this, we see Irithel pop up. Melissa's there. We've seen great things from Clint. Finally on teams, yesterday, having success with that. So, does Philippines want to take that? Do they want to go for one of these picks that is slower? And this is it. Like, the Irithel is great, but it's slow. It's slow to build up. Don't get me wrong. She's fast.
Fine.
Like she's fast
slow
sprinting
to build
around.
up, but
she's
movement
slow to build
speed-wise,
up.
it's fast.
She needs literally 4 items to be successful for the most part.
Okay, I know what we're going through. The damage needs to work out to proc the passive for the ultimate of the Irithel. So with this, he has more, or this Irithel rather is being picked up right here by Philippines, is to have safe passage around the Turkish Poissons, even around the last Insanity, because at some point in game number 1, there were a lot of disengages. And I get where you're going there. He needs more damage, but with this time around, that Valier's on his side to aid with his lane, maybe that's a good way to amping up more of getting those items right away.
There's a shining sheriff in town.
And we're going back to it. It's high noon here, but not really, right, in Romania. But Clint comes through. They're bringing out the cowboy for this game, and they need it, right? Valentina as well locked in, so that does mean we've got that combination. We've seen this many times. Novaria, Valentina. It can work really great, especially when your job is to just take that feathered airstrike for the most part. Yeah. And now your poke potential is paired up with great burst potential just in those 2 heroes alone, if you can get it, right? A lot of the times what we've seen when Valentina is picked up is the opposing team will be very defensive on how they approach these team fights, not allowing or at least forcing the Valentine to get close enough, right? So this is another interesting pick that we haven't seen too much of up to this point.
Even for Canon.
A couple times. We've even seen him part in the roam, but obviously we'd like to see him in the XP lane. This R-Lot right here will provide a very good setup for Philippines if they can pull off that final slash ultimate ability.
Actually, the Vengeance as well is still working. Although the nerf on his ultimate is actually a bit of a disadvantage for his own setup. But one thing also that we're seeing is how he can be really, really slidey in those kinds of initiations. In a way, this is still strong. Arlott and Valier for Philippines.
So as we get a last look of these lineups for both these teams, again, this is match point here for the Philippines. They had a very strong game. The last one really able to control a lot of the pacing, but that was on the whims of Indonesia picking a lineup that was so hyper-focused, so meant on momentum and snowballing, that it was difficult to pull off. So here we go, jumping into the land of dawn, match point in the grand final for the Philippines, wanting to take this title from Indonesia from last year in Bali. Can they pull it off?
This is tough. A championship, a defending title on the line. How will Indonesia? Will they see a chance to recover? A lot of ways that we can actually see the opportunity in their lineup. This execution will actually matter. Unigo trying to poke on Moreno with the aid of Arcangel, trying to peel them off slowly. Using that retribution, Super Ken secures his purple.
Thanks for the heals, by the way. So he grabs that, but this is what you expect, right? The Valier did the same thing in the previous games. When it was locked in, you're just trying to poke down, to put pressure, especially around the buffs. You see them utilizing that, the kit, the burst fireballs, right? And it also, the thing about it too is the fact that when you have this buff, which you shouldn't technically have, it allows you to do a little bit more than you should. The pressure there is going to help them scale with this early game, right? 30 seconds away from this turtle. It's great if no one goes down for the first blood before it so they can actually battle it out, but looking at these, who has the level 4? They need the level 4 advantage. Moreno could be in trouble.
Saison is on level 4. Moreno could actually be taken down here, stunned in a taunt. Arcangel takes first blood.
As I was saying, man, right before the turtle, it would be great if none of the teams had the first blood, because then you can really contest this one and start the pace, start the momentum for your team. But with Moreno going down, he's going to need a little bit longer. Doesn't have the level 4 yet, right? Doesn't have the ultimate. Poking in the XP lane, fighting for the turtle. Might just be better. Give this up to the Philippines. Let them take it. Let's see if we can find something elsewhere.
Astral Echo was trying to make a poke out of the last hit onto the turtle up top.
Saken
falls down. Off-cam kill, Ricatiano and Arcangel with the aid in the gold lane. Rotating quickly, Arcangel on this first item pickup. Elegant Gem and the boots. He's getting busier by the minute.
It's deja vu. Arcangel, 2 kills in, nearing that 3-minute mark. He just needs one more, and he's literally the same situation he was in the previous game. And what does that do for him? It helps him scale really well. He's almost done with his Clock of Destiny, which is a scaling item on someone like Farsa. It gets really scary dealing with that burst damage with the Feathered Airstrike. So Indonesia, they gotta slow it down a little bit, right? This early on, you're already down 1.5k gold. You have to be able to buy time, especially the fact that, yeah, Saken on this Clint pick, he's going to be a little susceptible to ganks, right? You really have to be able to watch out for him. So with that, that was it. That was being picked up. The Clock of Destiny locked in here.
Good taunt there. Super Ken being in trouble. Used to force out Turtles Poissons. And we have the Feather Airstrike poking and bursting him down. He's peeled. Now he's forced to take on his own jungle camp objectives. Meanwhile, down bottom, Cannon and Cerezo using that vengeance to slip out of the area. Ricatiano taking down Saken. Now action is up top. 4 members of the Philippines here. Vin coming in from the phase, and now Vin flickers out for safety. Philippines trying to gain additional coverage in the first 4 minutes of the game.
This is complete control in the early game right now. The Philippines, they are unrelenting. They don't want to let up at all. And this is exactly what you have to do when you have this lineup, right? You want to scale in really quickly. You want to be aggressive when you have the Valier. You're looking for these stuns. Indonesia, they're looking to make a play on the top side. They get the flicker out. Look at the Searing Torrent. Pushes them back. That's the power of a Valier right there.
Debuff, pushback, and also knock up from this hero alone.
Valier. He pays dividends in dealing with a lot of that initiation, right? That's why you pick him up.
A growing threat, a problem. They would need to answer with the magic defense item early on. This first 5 minutes, Philippines secures another objective in this first 5 minutes of the game.
So with that, 2 turtles in. They further the gold lead that they have. Economy going way in the favor of the Philippines at this point. First item's already pretty much being picked up. On to the second. Indonesia needs time to build back up here. They have to be able to choose their own fights, but at what cost and at what pace do they go for? Here, it looks like they want to go for Cannon.
Cannon receiving the Astral Echo, that's the poke, using that final way to evade that momentum. Arcangel flickers out for safety, using one of his own passives to escape the possible takedown. Socken, though, taking on the turret up top, down bottom.
Okay, still finding anything they can. Indonesia still trying to get on the board here. That's the problem, right? They need a kill. We still have one turtle left. And if they can actually contest it, it would be great for their favor. They're starting to get to the point. Big part of it is, do we at least have our first item? Do we have, are we building towards that second? Oh, Final Slash.
Final Slash doing the work for Philippines. Forced out, a last insanity out of Chorizo. Now he's forced into his own defense.
Flicker too.
Back in the turret, Super Ken Moreno tries to clear this up. Saison being taunt, using the taunt onto Super Ken, trying to poke him down. Present for the purple and the orange damage, using the Taurus Persons to slow him down. Ken, on the other hand, they're ready for reinforcement. They back away. Indonesia respecting the damage in the first minute. But 6 minutes in, Philippines rotating quicker, trying to contest this portal. Up top, Cannon, though, clearing more of the minions in.
And here we go, right? Third turtle almost up. They might look to contest it. Mid lane going to be the focus here, though.
Moreno dropping down low. He could be in trouble. Cannon, though, on level 9, closely getting another attribute for damage. Philippines still a slow engage. No skirmishes at Raisu.
This is probably just another turtle in the hands of the Philippines, unless Super Ken comes through here for Indonesia. He's got to do it. He's trying to get the vision, won't be able to get it. Now gets collapsed on. He might, yeah, he has to use the ultimate. So another resource down. That's 3 for 3 for the Philippines. If they wanted to end the game in this game 4, they're well on their way for it. The gold lead's starting to build up. You can see a lot of this hesitation from Indonesia, but that's honestly what they have to do. You're so far behind in the early game.
We can't blame them. They need defense.
You have to build it. You have to build it back up. You have to choose your fights.
Speaking of fights, though, Super Ken might drop low. Recreano securing the kill onto Indonesia. Chorizo receiving damage, being pushed back by the searing torrent. Chorizo now, no Firaga armor, is now being denied to use that ultimate. The Praetor right connecting onto the damage. Saison with the pokes. Moreno trying to push out more, but the peel is not enough yet. But with the push and the turret takedown, Philippines slowly advancing. 3 turrets down for Indonesia.
Berserker's Fury being picked up here for Rectiano on that Irithil. As I was saying, it takes time to build up, but when you have this kind of early game to mid-game transition for the Philippines, it happens a lot sooner, right? And at the same time, he's only got 3 of the items that he needs. If he gets that 4th one, it's really going to start to hurt. And this is, once again, when we look back at the MVP performances from the Philippines for Rectiano, the team allows him to be in this environment, to get to this point, and it will really start to shine as we get further into the game. You can see them really focusing now, their eyes set on these tier 2 turrets. Again, Indonesia doesn't have much space to work with, only 1 turret down. They're kind of forced to stay on the defensive here on this side of the base. Another tier 2 falls in the bottom lane.
Still a slow start. Feather Airstrike, Arcangel trying to take down. Successfully, Super Ken falls down. Eyes on the mid lane. Philippines looking to clear up more in the turret defenses. Going back to your thought there, Irithel is Irithel now completely a force, a complete damage tool by just pushing around the map.
She doesn't really, like, that's the thing though. Like for Indonesia, that's just one problem, that you're dealing with at this point. Now it's the Lord being just taken freely by the Philippines. So you're back to this. Backs against the wall. We have to defend. We want to extend this series. We can't lose it here for Indonesia. Do we have what it takes to actually defend against this? Yeah, well, yeah, it's only the first Lord. We should be able to clear it rather quickly, right? Yep. But right now, Sakin, he needs more time. Clint, and if you guys noticed from the draft, there was a lot of bans here focused on the gold lane, and there's a reason for it. You don't have these heroes that pop, that get picked up quite often to clear these lanes, to be on the defensive and handle these situations as well. Clint just needs a little bit more time. Berserker's Fury being picked up. That's a great step in the right direction. So Rizzo just getting his Ice Queen wand. So now at least some of that slow here can help deviate the Philippines a little bit. But this is where it really matters. Losing the tier 2 turrets, holding on to these last 3 in your base. Lord still making its way here in the bottom lane. This is where Indonesia has to step up. They have to be able to defend.
Is this go time for Indonesia? Ash Flag will be placed on Super Ken. He's trying to get on the pulse of damage. Riccodiano has on target. He's now pushed back to base to regen. Still no casualty though, still safe. But 3 ultimates used by Indonesia to defend that wave and to defend a possible takedown by Philippines.
Rather successful defense, right? Again, it was only the first Lord. They should be able to clear it up pretty well. They picked up some key items for them as well. This helps them in the fighting department. Is it enough, though, to actually deal with a contestant when the next Lord comes up? Probably not yet, right? They're still working down 9,000 gold deficit. And you can see it here. Super Ken could be in trouble.
Super Ken being chased down by Unigo, being chased down Riccodiano. Look at the damage. He can't do much. He now is on cooldown, 20 seconds for Super Ken to retrieve and recall back. 4 members left to defend. Look at the damage. This is a complete destruction. Look at that cannon vengeing on through. Moreno using the Feather Airstriker arc on to their defense, Arcangel, and that is a pause.
Okay, there's a lot happening there before we take this little breather, right? One thing to note, Sakin did get a kill. He got one there, but my main question is, are they running out of time, right? Is the clock ticking here? Of course it is, because they're down so much gold. And at this point in the game, the Philippines kind of has a couple options. You know, do they actually want to go and just end this even without, let's say, securing the next Lord? There's a possibility for that. You know, or they could go and focus it, and then Indonesia's up to decide, do we want to contest this or do we just want to defend? And I think either way, you have to weigh your options there. But at this point, again, with Sakin in basically disparity of damage because he's only got the Endless Battle, and I believe, yeah, he just picked up that Berserker's Fury. It's tough for him. You know, it's tough for him to really provide some of that damage, not to mention when there's the threat, the ongoing threat of Final Slash from Cannon. If he decides to just kind of go in, especially when the flicker is available, Final Slashes Sakin completely in the place that he doesn't want to be because positioning is crucial, that could turn the tide of that fight already in a split second just like that. This is a relatively low kill game, right? These teams are sizing each other up for the most part. We're almost 12 minutes in here.
Oh, Unigo
did die. Yes,
yeah.
He went down, but still, that's what I'm saying. Like, even then, you're still working from nearly 10,000 gold deficit. Before we jumped in this game, we were like, we've seen crazier things, right? We've seen turnarounds.
Crazier comebacks.
For the playoffs, yeah. Turn around, 10,000 gold behind, something amazing happens in your base, and then, you know, it flips over. That's what Indonesia is hoping for, which really comes down to, once again, Sakin's got to stay alive. He's got a couple ways to stay alive. He's got Flicker. He's got the Bola. He can move back a little bit. But it's even up to the team. Like, how much peel do you actually have to keep your gold lane alive?
Speaking of peel,
Malefic Roar. That's great.
3-level XP gap against Riccodiano. 3-level gap against Sakin. Damaged by just his own basic hits. Movement speed-wise, he's quicker, he's agile, he's mobile. Quickly escape possible takedowns, but now they need more damage. That was a good point that you were trying to mention about the items. Right now, it's not really ready for Indonesia to have this way of managing a team fight.
Yeah.
So they're respecting the damage of Philippines right now and they're looking for possible ways to have a pickoff.
Okay, we're gonna take a quick look at the items here while we wait for this Lord to spawn. As we were saying, Sakin needed time to build up. He's gotten the time. Indonesia has done that, right? He's got the 3 items that he needed. He picked up the Malefic Roar. That is a key component to this fight. But still, as we take another breather, it's going to really depend on this push, how they're able to deal with this Lord. They gave it up. That was actually the smart decision. Give up the Lord. We don't want to contest it because at that point, if they actually did have a member or two go down, that would almost be the game with this type of lead. So you're forced, if you're Indonesia, to just give that up, take a deep breath, get ready for this defense.
Well, speaking of defense, let's check back on how will they defend a team fight. Looking back on the items, we have Immortality for Sorizo. We have Damage, the one who is also with an advantage is the Clint. We have Endless Battle, we have Berserker's Fury, we also have Malefic Roar. You were talking about the defensive, or the defense department. That was the Radiant Armor also present for Super Ken, but mostly on Moreno, and for the Mage Shearers is mostly on the offensive ones. So this is a tight defense. This is a tight stronghold that they can actually establish up against Philippines.
Which is crucial, right? Again, as we wait to get back into the game here, it's up to Indonesia. If they want to extend the series, if they want to fight to retain that title from last year's championship at Bali, this is what it comes down to. And it's just because of the fact that you were at such a gold deficit for the majority of this game. You have to work back from it. We've seen great base defenses before, down this much. This is literally what we talked about before the draft even started, or before this grand final started. There's always the opportunity for teams to turn it around. And now that they have their items, like we said, my biggest thing is, if you're looking at Indonesia, where do you start? Where do you start this successful defense for your team? And that is number one, what does Moreno get for an ultimate?
Who do you pick?
What
Who
does
do you
he
pick
pick
against Philippines?
Exactly. Not only that, most likely the Feathered Airstrike, right? Because you want some of that burst damage. But let's say he gets the final slash himself and they're somehow able to outplay the Philippines. That is a possibility that we only can wait to basically see unfold. It's up to them how they want to approach that fight. And at the same time, you know, the downside of Novaria, when you're this far behind and you're trying to defend your base, is really you're kind of just sitting around your crystal. You're sitting at the base or the fountain even and just trying to shoot shots off, right? You're trying to just whittle down. But even that, you don't really have the items you need. Again, you only have the Clock of Destiny. You only have the Lightning Transient, right? You don't have that many tools yet. So that's the thing. Again, can you buy enough time for everybody to get to where they need to be, to at least match the Philippines in terms of itemization?
Yeah.
That's where it gets really hard in terms of defending this.
That's the mission. If they want to take this to game number 4, they need to have the right targets. They need to have the right isolation. How will they divert? How will they divert Philippines? How game number 1 went was totally in their favor. Game number 2, we have a recovery. We've seen recovery from both of these two teams having the same chance, 1-1. Now looking at this lineup, even by this defense, a lot of things can be speculated, but now we return to the game.
Here we go. Once again, Lord has not marched in just yet. Philippines is managing these waves the best they can. Lord now will be making its way down the mid. They're going to go ahead and wait for that. Indonesia has to hold on to these turrets if they can. Is it going to happen? They'll have their work cut out for them. They have to be able to displace or at least react to what the Philippines is about to do to possibly end the series here.
Saison starting to fight Super Ken, dropping down low. Cannon takes down one. Soriso trying to hold in upon. Saison Regadiano, the damage is now in. The base is too open. Now Philippines is now taking the base of Indonesia. Remember their names. Regadiano, Saison, Cannon, Arcangel, and Odigo are your 15th IESF MLBB World Champions!
Such a dominant game there. The last one, game number 4 here, to take the title from Indonesia. And you can see them celebrating as they should. It was a showcase for the journey here. Again, until today, they were undefeated in their run through the groups, in their run for the playoffs. And Indonesia as well, hats off to them. They went through the ringer in the lower bracket. They played 8 games yesterday, crawling back up here to the grand final. And it's unfortunate that they couldn't get to that game 5 and defend that title, but still, what a masterclass of competitive MLBB play that we see here, that we've seen for the past days ahead of us, behind us, ahead of us, everything. It's been amazing here. And you can see supporters of the Philippines, and I'm sure there's a lot watching online as well. We know that you guys love rooting for both of these teams. Congratulations once again to the Philippines here.
They have taken down the defending champions from Bali last year, and now they have totally prevailed from all of the challenges building up to this moment, we still got handed over still to Indonesia for still keeping and still being with us here, even in the grand finals.
Well, let's take a look at the MVP here for this game number 4, the closing victory of this grand final. It's going to be none other than Recutiano once again in the gold lane, but this time on the Irithil. You can ban out my Brody. I can do the same thing on another hero. So he's able to do it and pull it through. What an amazing performance. And I just gotta say again, all the gold laners that get to this point, man, does their team help them get there.
Yeah.
And the positioning, a lot of the times go back and look at all these games from Recutiano. Every single time that he's gotten MVP, his micro, his positioning, his mechanics are on point. So again, congratulations there to this game's MVP. What a showcase.
Wow. What a tough match. What a tough day. What a way to end this grand finals. Philippines had its first defeat. And by just going through all of the challenges they went through, completely having a chance to get a grip. And this time it is the grand finals. They are the champions of the 15th World Esports Championships of IESF.
Again, talk about the journey, man. You know, when we saw them out in the Asian Championships, very dominant, and, you know, still got to give a big shout out to all the teams that have competed here, because we were talking about this yesterday as we were getting through those lower bracket matches and then the upper bracket matches, how much improvement has been there, specifically even teams like Saudi Arabia, man. The improvement from the Asian Championships up to this point have been amazing and very apparent, so hats off to everybody. Thank you guys so much. Again, I'm Naisu, this is OSX. We've been calling the action for the past 4 days. We thank you, Yash Romania, everybody watching around the world. We're going to pass it over to John to hear from our champions, the Philippines.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. And of course, my love goes to Naisu and OSX for crushing it all tournament long. Thank you to all of our casters across every single language. But now, without further ado, it is my distinct honor and privilege to congratulate Team Philippines for their championship of the World Esports Championship 2023, live from Yash, Romania. First things first, my man is live right now on Instagram. I love it. He's live. That's amazing. We get to do an interview 2 times. I have to ask you, in your language, for all of your fans back home in the Philippines, what words do you have? How do you feel?
Salamat sa mga nagsuporta sa amin, tapos nabawian namin yung dapat bawian namin. Maraming salamat, guys!
Congratulations again. Recutiano MVP performance. Talk about your teammates. How did your team come together and play? In your opinion, who was the MVP of your team?
I think the MVP is the Pichay Recutiano because they carry all of us.
The overall carry. That's amazing. Last question for you. What does it mean to represent your flag, your country, the Philippines, for a gold medal, and of course, in this competition?
I feel so proud. I did not just represent my country, I also represent myself and my family for us.
To all the fans that watches Grand Finals, thank you all. Multumis.
That's amazing. Respect shown to the live crowd here in Yash. Last question I have to ask you. Sweet revenge over Team Indonesia from Bali. How does it feel?
It's good. Yeah.
Simple and sweet. Any final words for anybody at home in your language? Any final words?
Antayin nyo kami sa MPL Season 12. Doon kami mga madudurog.
I love it. Congratulations. Well, gentlemen, please make your way forward for the trophy lift and presentation. It's time to congratulate officially your champions of the Mobile Legends Bang Bang tournament here at IESF World Esports Championship, the Philippines! On behalf of our entire production team, the IESF, our casters, Naisu, OSX, and every caster that commentated in every single language, thank you all so much for watching and enjoying one of the greatest esports in the world, Mobile Legends Bang Bang. Congratulations to the Philippines, your winners, and the runner-up, Indonesia. Have a great afternoon, everybody. We'll catch you for the Dota 2 competition coming up soon. One more time, give it up for the Philippines!